Chapter 441, Episode 83, Dakya's Incarnation 3. Exclusive skill. Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint third stage is currently active. My consciousness grew dim. The first thing I heard within this pitch-black darkness was the paragraphs coming to me from beyond the fourth wall. In that moment, Yijai looked at the battlefield. Yijai's battlefield was there, alongside dozens of ships seemingly blanketing the whole of Tangshan River. Incarnations of Emperor, prepared to fire the cannons, while historical figure-grade constellations were in charge of the command. Open fire. Emperor's battleships surrounding the Turtle Dragon commenced firing simultaneously. Yijai advanced forward while brushing past the wreckages of other destroyed vessels. Some attacks she let them land her ship, while some others she dodged. Load the cannons. It was like watching an orchestra. Her ability to command the fleet, that had surely reached the realm of a naval god, allowed her to move the Turtle Dragon and the Ghost Fleet as she saw fit. Fire. Naval Admiral Yijai's fleet opened fire. The Ghost Fleet had rearranged their formation according to her command, and they soon repeated the accurate hit-and-run tactic, and the enemy fleet tasted destruction in the blink of an eye. How can something this unbelievable be? Her ability to overcome the difference of overwhelming numbers. This was the moment that the true worth of the naval admiral, one of the strongest incarnations in the ways of survival, announced itself to the world. Constellation, maritime war god, is proud of his incarnation. Yijai actually surpassed her sponsor in the latter half of the original story. Maybe I might get to see that spectacle unfold during this regression turn. We're changing our tactic. Perhaps they realized that things weren't going so well, as Emperor's fleet suddenly began charging at her. An armored battleship was taking the lead. It seemed that they had chosen to engage her in a close-quarter melee since they lost out in the long-range firefight. Unfortunately for them, though, there was something that they didn't know. I created this technique so that I could give Dakya Ajasi a good one later on, but this. The thing was, the Naval Admiral Yijai was also very handy in close-quarter battles, too. Seeing her crouched posture getting ready to draw her sword, I could just about guess what she was thinking of doing here. Instant kill, Chinese letter. I could see that she had mastered one of the best anti-personnel combat skills in ways of survival. Quiet. As the loud explosions burst out from the side of the ship, Yijai began her close-quarter combat. She cut, sliced, and then cut some more. A sword demon's blade cut through the waves of water and reaped the head of the enemy commander. And how much longer did she continue to cut after that? In the middle of the Tangshan's battlefield, now dyed crimson by the spreading fables, Yijai lay on her back utterly fatigued, having dealt with all of her enemies. She stared at the darkening sky and asked softly, as if she was talking to me. Ajasi, you're okay, right? I wanted to tell her that I was fine, but my lips didn't want to part. Your current level of proficiency for Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint is very high. It's now possible to split the POV. Character Jiang Huiwan's viewpoint has been added to the third-person POV. The second person I saw was Jiang Huiwan. Get out of my way. She was in the midst of chasing Fei Hu down. Yi Hyunseong's blade, as she held him tightly, was busy shooting out the licks of flames belonging to Hellfire. Everywhere she passed by, ashes danced in the air. I could more or less figure out what happened here. To think that Fei Hu gave up on the fight first. Maybe the strongest incarnation in Korea was Jiang Huiwan after all. Character Jang Hyong's viewpoint has been added to the third-person POV. Jang Hyong, still wearing the fake beard, was running on the river, Han Myung-oh stuck under her arm. The end of her gaze was fixed on Yi Gil-yong, currently engaged in a bitter battle against the Lords of the Nine Stars. Hey kid, step aside. The Lords of the Nine Stars were a part of Emperor's elite forces. Jang Hyong got ready to unleash the power of breaking the Sky Force punch at them. However, Yi Gil-yong shook his head and shouted back. Please don't interfere, Hayoung-i Hayoung. I'm more than enough for this. He looked at the distant center of the battlefield and gritted his teeth. I can't lose to Shin Yu-seong. Yi Gil-young's voice, darkness seemingly overflowing from it, was tinged with an ominous undertone. And in the following moment, a yellow-colored storm exploded out from the boy's entire body. No, hang on a sec, could that be? Before I could come to any sort of conclusion, the scene changed. Character Yu Young-hyuk's viewpoint has been added to the third-person POV. Next up was Yu Young-hyuk, currently facing off against the 28 Mansions constellations by himself. No matter how strong he is in the end, he's still an incarnation from a weak little nebula. You think a lone bastard like yourself can deal with actual stars? Even though they were acting tough, Yu Young-hyuk's hand was currently holding a couple of severed heads belonging to dead stars. His coat had turned into a tattered rag from the concerted attacks of the 28 Mansions, and there was a noticeable wound on his arm, but beside that, he was completely fine. If you're talking about constellations, then I've cut down plenty of your kind already. Blood trickled down his forehead. His hair stained by the constellations, fables danced about, and like some kind of an evil monster, Yu Young-hyuk raised his head up. And that is why all of you will fall today. And the screen changed for the final time. Ajasi. It was my own incarnation. Please, please listen to my voice. Her figure trembled as if she was sobbing. Next up, I saw my hand, held tightly in hers. That limp, powerless hand couldn't even hold hers at all. Her words cut off intermittently, and the things I need to say to her, and the things I need to hear from her, all disappeared in between the flitting words. Fable, Savior of a Star, is continuing on with its storytelling. I wanted to move. I wanted to wipe her tears away. I wanted to kneel down and hug her before telling her that her wishes were also mine too. Su-cha-cha-cha-cha. Memories were crumbling away. Letters floated around the surroundings. I sensed myself scatter away inside this darkness. I heard a voice calling out to me from beyond the empty abyss. I saw something resembling a violently whipping great hole in the distance. Slowly, very slowly, my soul was being sucked in there. Taimita ki ep yoer pr omisi. I was scared. If I were to forget all of these emotions, where would they go to then? And from where and to how far would the fourth wall remember my story? Balat Bayat. Bu suddenly appeared and grabbed hold of my soul being sucked out. She did everything in her power to pull back at that clump of soul. Bayat. I could only look on at her confused, flustered struggling. I too didn't want to go there. Call me to thec of thegretpl otter. That was if only I could. Are you really planning to go there? Along with the noise of tsu-cha-cha-chu, the flow of the surrounding atmosphere changed. The letters stopped scattering away, and the suction force pulling at my soul disappeared. Someone was using his own status to forcibly suppress my extinguishment. This master sun is asking you. I looked back and discovered a rather familiar constellation standing there. His platinum blonde hair gently danced in the air, and his headband was emitting a soft glow. Great Sage. Indeed, it was the Great Sage Heaven's equal, a mischievous smile etched on his lips. However, he wasn't alone this time. The Ray are two mine why Sun Wukong's here. Oh, so that's the fragment of the final wall that I heard about. What a noisy bastard. What an interesting visualized world this is. One was a handsome monkey kitted out in a cowboy get-up, while the other monkey had this languid expression on his face, his hand stuck under the tiger-striped thong and busy scratching away at something. I immediately recognized who they were. Are you Baimon and Mei Hawang? Before any reply could come to me, voices resounded out from the air above. Kai-ng of Moing Kis. Reoupl to and trf eyths. Shut up, we're busy talking here. Mei Hawang got irritated and unleashed his power, causing the ripples from the outer gods to instantly disappear. That was truly a gobsmacking status. Demon King of Salvation, we came here to ask you about something. The one who said that was not the great sage Meihaoeng, nor was it by Mon. Someone I had never seen before was there. He had an exotic countenance, a face oozing with this mysterious aura preventing anyone from identifying his gender. Short, neatly trimmed black hair, and an elegant Buddhist robe on his frame. And judging by the fact that he was also carrying a Ruyi Jingubang, he too was definitely Sun Wukong. The odd thing was, though, I couldn't see the usual constrictive headband on his head. To Kim Dakya's knowledge, there was only one Sun Wukong like that in the world. Duzhen Shengfo, victorious fighting Buddha. Su Jujajajut. Thin sparks exploded in the air, as if to react to what I said. Duzhen Shengfo asked me with an expressionless face, "I've been watching your story from the beginning." My apologies for that. It was a fable with a meaning. Even out of all those numerous times when the journey to the West repeated itself, there never had been a fable that focused itself on the pain of the dying Yogos. Meihaoeng, listening to him talk on the side, muttered, "Here comes the sermon-loving idiot." Completely disregarding him, Duzhen Shengfo continued on. However, their pain is their preordained destiny. Not everyone can become protagonists after all. Why do you think so? You speak as if all Yogos are victims, but not all of them are wrongly thrust into their positions. Some among them had never worked hard once in their lives, while some carry evil intentions and choose to hurt others. Therefore, it is quite obvious that they will never become the main characters. You're correct. However, just like what you've implied, some of them are not guilty of anything. No, make that quite a lot of them. And that is why countless fables exist in this world. Great fables aren't the only good fables. Those who are nothing more than small, insignificant beings inside a great fable can still become the main character of a different fable. He was right. Indeed, as right as it can be, however. That is only applicable when they are allowed to participate in fables. There were some creatures in this world that were excluded from entering even those fables. Beings that were simply spent as expendables in various fables, while not even receiving a single % of shares. Come. Fables should be permitted to even those who have failed. The ones that had forgotten about themselves weren't even allowed to enjoy the opportunities of the scenarios. The star stream gagged them and made sure that their words would become incomprehensible to others. Is that what you truly believe? Duzhen Shengfo asked, his unreadable eyes still locked on me. No, more correctly, he was looking at the power of chaos rising out from my body. And you wish to sacrifice your whole being and become an outer god. That's correct. The great sage was yawning with a bored face during my answer, and once he was done, spoke his opinion. Are you done with your confirmation? I told you, did I? This guy's really like that. Indeed. Seriously, man, convincing the dear all-Buddhism is the hardest thing ever. I had no clue what these guys were talking about. 4 Sun Wukongs glanced at me while yapping among themselves. Okay, so, who's going to do it then? I shall do it. I had lost most of my memories after I was granted the Buddhahood, after all. Well, I guess you being a fakey monk can be helpful in situations like this one. Right in the next moment, bright light rose up all around me, causing my scattering memories to come back. And as the probability sparks exploded, my body glowed brightly too, as if I was being electrocuted. Someone is dealing with the penalty of outer god transformation in your stead. What? Demon King of Salvation, you're wrong about one thing, said Duzhen Shengfo as he unleashed the power of chaos. Becoming a Yago will not help you in understanding them. You simply do not have the qualifications to represent them. He was right once more. I couldn't possibly have known anything about the outer gods, suffering pain and agony as the Yogos from the journey to the West, because I was just another actor playing Sun Wukong. Meihaoeng sniggered and remarked sarcastically, "You should know your place." Baimon quickly added something else. "Your main topic is not in this place." The last person to speak up was the great sage. Leave the matters of yogos to other yogos, and you should live your own fable. Only then did I finally figure out what was going on here. Great Fable, Journey to the West, has begun its storytelling for you. But why? Why were they doing this for me? The great sage smirked and replied, because we like your fable, that's all. I thought I could hear the loud roars of the upper-rank outer gods coming from afar. At the same time, I sensed the power of the outer gods strengthening gradually. Highs. Where's ours? My bad, but we can't give him to you. No. King is coming. The great hole continued to churn angrily within the darkness. Something was trying to descend to this world. It was the king of all these outer gods. Constellation, secretive plotter, is glaring at the prisoner of the golden headband. That message brought out a bright smile on the great sage's face. Right, I wanted to have a go at you sometime, did I? For Sun Wukong stood all around me. So who'll be the main this time? Of course, it'll be me, the great sage. And thus the dumbass Sun Wukong is born. Hey you, don't flip your finger like that. You think this is a fusion fantasy. In the following moment, Sun Wukongs around me grasped each other's hands. Oh Starstream, we will be accepting the Demon King of Salvation as our fifth self. Episode 83, Dakya's Incarnation 3 Fin. Chapter 442, Episode 83, Dakya's Incarnation 4. Ajasi. Powerful rays of light exploding out from Kim Dakya's entire body, and the waves of magical energy containing Emperor-S Great Fable pouncing on Shin Yuseung's position, happened almost at the same time. She reflexively embraced his body. The durability of her Beast King sensitivity had dropped to a critical level after defending against countless attacks so far, but she had no other methods to defend against this new wave other than this one. She squeezed her eyes shut, and the moment she hunkered down, a storm of blinding light exploded, and the waves of fables blanketing the surroundings disappeared as if they were washed away. Nah. Her body, raised up to the sky, slowly descended back down again. The spot where Kim Dakya had been standing only until a moment ago was now occupied by a tall man. He was blessed with the blindingly pure platinum blonde hair, forged steel-like muscles, and fiery golden eyes, burning in a crimson hue. Emperor-S constellations freaked out. This can't be. The outer gods were also shocked by the emission of the stupendous level of status from him. Currently possessing the bodies of the Yogos, these outer gods expressed their fluster at the stunning status of chaos rising from this tall man. Hoo. The man grinned brightly. For them to not recognize me, I guess my retirement has gone on for too long. Shin Yuseung couldn't figure out what was going on here. She could definitely sense Kim Dakya's aura from this man, but he was not him. In that case, just who was this man? Ajasi. So you're Sanzang. The great sage calmly looked down at her before slowly lowering himself. Soon, their gazes were locked on the same eye level. Kim Dakya is safe. An unfathomable sense of lonesome longing flooded out from his fiery golden eyes. Shin Yuseung unconsciously reached out, the moment her hand touched that cold golden headband on his head. Fable, Demon King of Salvation, is continuing with its storytelling. Her hand trembled. She could sense it so clearly. Kim Dakya was living and breathing within this person. Not only did he not transform into a mysterious something, but the figure of Kim Dakya she was familiar with remained as was. Yuseung-a. Jiang Huiwan dashed in from the distance and hurriedly shielded Shin Yuseung away while shooting the great sage a glare. He simply grinned back at her and shifted his gaze up to the sky. That was where a portion of Emperor-S constellations, Great Dakibus, as well as the Weni King could be found. Why do you all look like that? Weren't you yapping unhappily among yourselves without the protagonist of Journey to the West, me, present earlier? Indeed, he was the main protagonist of the journey, the the great sage heaven's equal. One of the great Dakibus asked him a question. Why have you stepped forward? Do you not have an agreement with the emperor? I didn't break the deal. Besides, do you even have any idea what that deal is in first place before asking me that? The great Dakibai didn't have the chance to reply, as the Weni King's true voice buted in first. Monkey King, are you insane? The demon king of salvation is ours. He's an outer god now, in other words. That was our agreement. He's my brother now, and also, the great sage's fiery golden eyes emitted bright light. I'm also an outer god now, you see. Due to Duzhen Shengfo's transformation into an outer god, the aura of chaos was billowing out from Sun Wukong's entire body. Shares of outer god in the applicable scenario currently is 35.333%. Hidden scenario, verifying agreement has been completed. Power of the great fable has begun moving. Scenario Journey to the West remake is entering its final phase. And then Sun Wukong looked at his longtime comrades. Yogos that had fallen into confusion were all looking up at him. The majority of them were outer gods used as expendables in the scenario. Up until only a few moments ago, they had been searching for their king, yet now they were shaking their heads in a clear sign of fluster. Kengis. Which on? Yogos were at a loss, stuck between the great sage appearing as a brand new outer god and the secretive plotter they had been following originally. He spoke to them as if he could understand their confusion. You all suffered greatly until now, my friends. These Yogos, they had experienced this really lengthy tale together with him. I know very well of the ordeals you were subjected to. I was born as a Yago, but got influenced by men's ways and ended up accepting their ideals and customs. I carried out what they deemed to be true righteousness and walked on their path of Tao. Sometimes they were his enemies, at other times they were his allies. And the result of that is this. Yogos were sacrificed, and the meaningless epiphany repeated itself. Now, Journey to the West has become a tool to strengthen the nebula's influence by spreading around the tired, obvious truths. However, all of that was nothing more than a fable, a play performed on a stage. I'm sure it'll be impossible to atone for the past, even then, if you are willing to forgive me. The ancient king of the Yogos, their king, who used to fight against the heavenly worlds once upon a time, was now speaking to them. Then I shall fight for you from now on. One by one, Yogos raised their heads. Really. The great sage replied to them, I shall put my true name on the line and swear to you. Yogos began moving towards him. 1 and 2 soon became 10, grew to 100, and before long went past 1,000. Yogos hiding under the river's water, ones hiding within the clouds in the sky, they all revealed themselves. They gathered like swarms and began forming a horde, as if they were trying to worship the king they had served a long time ago. Ancient great fable is waking up. Halt, cease what you're doing. You're a judge. A judge cannot interfere with a fable in progress. Great Dakibus urgently stepped forward to stop this situation, but it was useless, at least this time around. Starstream has acknowledged the probability of the 95th main scenario. Main theme of the Journey to the West remake is changing drastically. Even the great Dakibus couldn't go against the gigantic flow of the Starstream. As for the Weni King, it stepped back without resistance, as if it wished to observe the unfolding situation first. Its original aim was to send outer gods into a scenario anyway, so technically, that goal had pretty much already been accomplished. The only problem was, who was the one leading all these outer gods? Kugugugugu. Thunderbolts crashed down from the great hole in the sky, and soon, something broke past the abyss to make their descent. He is. Status emitted by him was so powerful that the outer gods appearing so far couldn't even compare to him. The great sage, the Weni King, even the great Dakibus, they all witnessed that person's incarnation into the world. The great sage smirked, so he finally showed up. Constellation, secretive plotter, has incarnated into the scenario's location. Someone has joined the scenario in the role of Demon King of Confusion. The secretive plotter, currently in the form of a jet-black lump of shadow wavering around in the wind, took on the role of a Yago to participate in the scenario. Perhaps due to him not going through a proper entry procedure, blindingly bright sparks were enveloping his entire body. The great sage asked him, "Are you here to hinder this great master son?" "That depends on your choice." As expected, you have a rather insidious-sounding voice, secretive plotter. This would be the first time that these two came face to face. A confrontation was brewing between two constellations who had been watching Kim Dakya for a long time through Bihyung, and later, Biyu's channel. The great sage growled and spoke up. "You pretended to be all slick and sophisticated in your indirect messages, but today, you finally reveal your true colors." The secretive plotter quietly studied the great sage. "Meanwhile, you are just as thoughtless as your indirect messages suggest." Sun Wukong emitted a stupendous amount of status and roared out triumphantly while gripping his Ruyi Jingubang. "Enough talk. Since you're here, let's fight. This situation won't get resolved unless I kick your ass first anyway." The plotter's entrance caused agitation and unrest to spread among the surrounding Yogos. It seemed as if they were hesitating on who to follow among these two absolute beings. Submit to the king of all Yogos, the great sage, heaven's equal. If not, submit to the king of outer gods, the secretive plotter. The possibility of a sudden confrontation between two constellations brought about a palpable sense of tension to the great Dakibus, Weni King, and to other constellations floating in the air. On one side, an outer god who dreamed of the star stream's destruction, while the other, the strongest constellation within Starstream itself. A battlefield that had never been created before was about to commence. Sun Wukong, burning with the will to fight, was about to raise his Ruyi Bang high up into the sky, but then, "I'm sorry, but your opponent today isn't going to be me." Accompanying those words, the heavens split open wide and a great amount of sparks exploded out. Nebula, Emperor S, constellations are descending to the scenario. The number flooding in was in another realm altogether compared to Emperor S forces that had entered so far. Half-destroyed stars of the 28 mansions, the few remaining lords of the 9 stars, dragon kings of the 4 seas, and after that, a countless number of immortals and war gods from the Taoist pantheon were incarnating into the scenario. Constellation, master of the immortal Peach Garden, is incarnating into the scenario. Constellation, Heaven's Wise Man, is incarnating into the scenario. A great number of constellations hiding their modifiers are incarnating into the scenario. That wasn't all. Spirits that ruled the plains, the mountains, and the rivers, and even the great cosmic army that guarded the heavenly palaces, an army consisting of over 100,000 in total, blanketed the scenario's sky. The pagoda-bearing heavenly King Li Jiang, Prince Nezha, and Erlang Shen. Now that is a nostalgic combination. And not only that, the heavenly palace's lazy-arsed geezers are here too. The enemies from the heavenly palace he used to fight against a long time ago were now standing before him. "Great sage, what's the meaning of this?" Prince Nezha, the very one who tried to suppress Jiang Huiyuan along with Fei Hu earlier, was now brimming full with the power of a fable incomparably mightier than before. That was because he was no longer playing a role from the fable chamber, but making an appearance as himself. "What do you mean, what? I'm here to end this scenario." The great sage's curt reply prompted an immediate opposition from Emperor S constellations to rise up. "You can't arbitrarily decide on the conclusion like this. Don't you realize that the journey to the west will end up in the hands of a weakling, Nebula, if you do this? Hurry and give up on the sacred texts." The great sage looked at the sacred text held in his hand and then took a glance at Shin Yusyung next to him. Then a smirk formed on his lips. "Arg, it's fine if it ends up with them. What's the problem? I mean, it's good that its fame is spreading out even further, am I wrong?" "This is against our agreement." Nope, it is. Us helping you out was until the four Sun Wukongs choose the same fable, wasn't it? And that day has arrived, that's all. Having realized what the great sage was thinking of, the Emperor's constellations began exchanging glances with each other. Nebula Emperor is greatly enraged at the prisoner of the golden headband. Erlang Shen stepped forward to represent his nebula. Great sage, do you understand what your actions mean? Could you be possibly planning to start the great war against the heavenly worlds in this place? No, I didn't think of that, but well, if you wish to fight then. Kugugugu. The incredible aura flooding out from the great sage's incarnation body forced constellations of Emperor to falter and retreat. His fable that swept across the heavenly worlds in the past was being unshackled in this scenario. However, Erlang Shen's voice remained composed. I acknowledge your strength. No one from Emperor can even dream of besting you in one-on-one combat. However, you can't win in this fight, because the fable will simply repeat itself. Tsujajajajun. Signs of stage transformation could be spied now. Fables collided, and the event from a long time ago was about to be recreated once more. A great war between the King of Yogos, the great sage Heaven's equal, and Emperor. The great sage spoke up. For sure, I did lose back then. However, that was when I was just the great sage Heaven's equal. The Emperor sensed something was off and made their move first. He's about to use his magic. Subdue him now. Lord Dea Tianzan, your Jingungzhu. Come, 6 brothers from the Mi Mountain. The great sage summoned his somersault cloud while watching the army of the heavenly worlds pounce on him. Dark clouds dyeing the sky black heated Sun Wukong's fable and began gathering into one place. Great fable, Journey to the West, has begun its storytelling. And then he opened his mouth. My true name is Sun Wukong. The great sage Heaven's equal. Meihaweng. Daimon. Duzhen Shangfo. And finally, the Demon King of Salvation. A storm began raging on top of the Tangshan River. Thunder and lightning crashed down, and in the center of this storm, the great sage was slowly clenching his fists. As the blinding lightning bolts pounded down on the battlefield, Yu Yonghyok finally arrived at his destination. The godly figure of the great sage, bringing down numerous constellations in the middle of the Tangshan, was truly something to behold. Kim Dokyao is inside that guy, huh? Thanks to his golden-colored eye of sage, Yu Yonghyok got to quickly confirm Kim Dokya's current situation. It seemed that the fool was still alive, and for some strange reason, that powerful great sage personally incarnated to grant the man his own powers. Jiang Hui-wan and Shin Yuseung could be seen some distance away. They were basically hiding among the great battles taking place between the Yogos and the constellations, which was a wise decision on their part, really. As for Yi Gilyong, Yi Jaihai, or even Jan Haiyong, it seemed that they hadn't arrived in this location as of yet. We need to finish this scenario soon. Their fabled chamber had already reached the top of the rankings, and the sacred texts were in the hands of Shin Yuseung, currently playing the role of Tang Sanzang. I've become the retired SSSSS grade Sun Wukong Fable Chamber is currently holding the sacred texts. Guarding the sacred texts for 1 hour will automatically conclude the scenario. 54 minutes remaining until the conclusion of the scenario. Even the final phase of the scenario had been activated as well. Just by holding on, the great fable of the journey to the west would be Kim Dokya Company S. However, there was one thing that concerned him, and that would be Kugugugu. It was that person, currently spectating on the battlefield from the middle of the sky. The secretive plotter. He was simply watching on at the fight between the great sage and emperor without getting involved. Yu Yonghyok could guess what he was planning here. He was probably planning to wait until the great sage ran out of strength and launch a sneak attack on his opponent afterwards. However, the incarnated plotter's aura wasn't the same as before. He seems to have wasted a lot of probability. He indeed has far too much riding on this regression turn. Those words were spoken by Yu Jung-hyuk 999. From some time ago, this damn dumpling was making himself home on the full-sized Yu Jung-hyuk's shoulder. He glanced at 999 with disinterested eyes before silently unsheathing the dark heavenly demon sword. Meaning, this is my chance to kill him. That was when the secretive plotter accurately locked eyes with him. Just from meeting that being's gaze caused Yu Jung-hyuk to freeze up on the spot. Fable, one who opposes miracles, is shrinking away. Fable, one who hunted the king of disasters, is refusing to fight. His fables were shivering in fear. So, becoming weak meant falling into such a state. The memories of defeat brushing past him now ruled over him. Perhaps the dark heavenly demon sword wasn't the only thing that broke on that day. 999 addressed him again. Looks like you're afraid. Yu Jung-hyuk didn't want to acknowledge it, but it was the truth. Indeed, the current you will never defeat the great plotter. It was the despair that couldn't be overcome no matter which history he was willing to bet away. Yu Jung-hyuk stared at that overwhelming wall of time. That wasn't something mere effort could overcome. However, it's not as if there are no other avenues left for you. What? 999 leapt off from Yu Jung-hyuk's shoulder, and his outer appearance began transforming. A Murim dumpling was changing to that of Yu Jung-hyuk. 999's height grew back up in an instant, and regained the exact same appearance as Yu Jung-hyuk's. The distinctive status of a transcender oozed out from the back of another him, currently facing away. Yu Jung-hyuk became keenly aware of who this was in this moment. Yu Jung-hyuk from the 999th turn. As his black coat danced in the air, 999 addressed his counterpart. Remember who you really are. Remember what you wish to achieve by coming this far. 999 then slowly pulled out a sword from his inner pocket. Surprisingly, it was not the heaven-shaking sword. No, it was the dark heavenly demon sword, the exact same weapon that the third turn Yu Jung-hyuk possessed. 999 spoke up once more. Let me show you the battle from the 999th turn. Episode 83, Dakya's Incarnation 4, Fin. Chapter 443, Episode 83, Dakya's Incarnation 5. Anyone would have read about Sun Wukong's story at least once in their lives. In my case, the first thing I'd recall after hearing his name would be his description as written in the Ways of Survival. Rui Jingu Bang that destroys the heavens. Body outside body spell that allows him to fight against a nebula all by himself. Thunderclouds capable of bringing down stars of the world. One of the strongest constellations in the Ways of Survival, that was the great sage heaven's equal, Sun Wukong. Great Fable, Journey to the West, is continuing on with its storytelling. And right now, I had become that very Sun Wukong. Kagagugu. Every time the great sage's fist pointed at a spot in the sky, the stars of Emperor fell in droves. I ended up holding my breath after witnessing that overwhelming power from a first-person perspective. I already knew that he was powerful, but never did I guess that it'd be by this much. Hey Makniya, what are you busy yapping on about? I heard Meihawang's voice in my head. It seemed that including myself, all 5 versions of Sun Wukong were watching the great sage's rampage in real time as well. Are you shocked by your Hyung Nim's power level? To be honest, I'm really impressed. Quack-quack-quack-quack. Kiwaraka. A giant that got sent flying away, just now was a fable-grade constellation. Come on now, how could blowing away a fable-grade with a single lightning bolt even make sense? Meihawang spoke as if to mock our opponents. HNG, was that the giant god, that measly little fable-grade made a mistake by trying to fight us? But was the prisoner of the golden headband a fable-grade as well? The one who answered back this time was Baimon. If we were on our own, sure, but you now understand what kind of an existence we are, don't you? He was right, this was really hitting home for me. The main protagonist of the journey to the West, Sun Wukong, was created by 4 different Sun Wukongs. The king of all monkeys that ruled the Water Curtain Cave, Meihawang, acknowledged by the Jade Emperor for his magical prowess and awarded the post of Baimon, the great sage Heaven's equal, who fought against the heavenly worlds that looked down on him. And finally, Duzhen Shengfo, who gained enlightenment through the events of the journey to the west. Only after the fables of these Sun Wukongs gather in one place would his true power be unleashed. Baimon muttered out, "That great sage dude, he's really having fun, isn't he? Well, I guess it's been a long time since he got to cut loose like this." Indeed, the great sage's true voice sounded as if he was really enjoying himself. "The heavenly worlds have become a lot weaker, haven't you? Is this all you've got?" Fable-grade constellations couldn't even endure 10 or so exchanges of blows, and all came crashing down into the Tangshan River's waters. Attack him! Despite that, Emperor S forces still remained powerful. After all, it was the nebula that boasted the highest number of stars in the star stream. The thing was, though, the great sage's fable was only getting started, too. Oh. Outer gods roared out all at the same time, and a lightning bolt landed on Sun Wukong's Rui Bang. Ripples of golden light exploded then, and he powerfully threw his weapon into the sky. Kwaya! Rui Bang's torpedo-like attack burned the heavens and flew forward with ferocious momentum. Incredible gusts of gale winds whipped around. Finally, the dispersing spray of water died down. One of the constellations, soaked to the bone like a mouse that fell inside a well, muttered out in disbelief. What is the meaning of? A portion of the skis was now empty. That single attack managed to annihilate thousands of divine immortals rushing in. Is this the real great sage, Heaven's equal? Even then, even when facing this overwhelming spectacle, Emperor S' spirit didn't diminish one bit. There's no need to fear. His fable is bound to hit its limit soon. Do not let up in attack. He's all alone in the end. The number of divine immortals swelled back up again and refilled the empty void in an instant. This was how Emperor fought. I got goosebumps. No matter how strong our side was, that side had no end to their supply. At this rate, the one to lose would be. HNG, no need to cower already. That fool hasn't used his power yet after all. That fool. I meant Duzhen Shengfo. Duzhen Shengfo, the victorious fighting Buddha. He was the one who dealt with the outer god transformation penalty earlier in my stead. Is he all right? The fourth is fine. He's enlightened in the ways of the 4 noble truths, Chinese letter, Chinese letter, Chinese letter, Chinese letter. So the memories of the material world are meaningless to him. Everything would return to nothingness. That's why. Baimon quickly tackled Meihawang down. Since when did Duzhen Shengfo become the 4th? Since he was the 4th one to make the appearance, that's why. Isn't it normal to count chronologically? With that thought process then. Obviously, I am the first since Sun Wukong started off with me. And congratulations, even though you're the least famous one, you get to be the 2nd. Acting exactly like a dumbass monkey that you are, busy spitting in your own face. You think anyone would actually remember a king of monkeys stuck in a cave? Well, it's a lot better than you fool who had to clean horse shit out of a stable. Was it because of the 2 Sun Wukongs bickering? The construction of the great sage's fable became unstable for a moment there, and he ended up getting struck abruptly by an enemy attack. As the main body began shaking, the great sage finally exploded in irritation. Shut the hell up, I can't concentrate. Of course, he didn't forget to add one more thing triumphantly as well. I'm the most famous one, so obviously I'm the first. Meihawang and Baimon exploded in a fit of dissatisfaction at the same time. For the first time since the battle commenced, the great sage had to be on the defensive against the incoming vast wave of the stars. If he got pushed back here, then he'd not be able to win this war. Maybe both Meihawang and Baimon understood that point as well, as they stopped bickering and concentrated as well. Boom, bang, kaboom. It was at that moment that a corner of the battlefield collapsed, and a huge battleship made its entrance. "Ajasi, I'm here." It was Yi Jai, advancing forward while destroying Emperor-S vessels. The members of Kim Dakya Company had made their move in order to support Sun Wukong fighting alone. That wasn't all, though. Constellation, gold-embodied Arhat, is incarnating into the scenario. The great sage's real comrades began entering the scenario one by one. The gold-embodied Arhat, Sha Wujing, appeared in the sky in his incarnation body and smiled contently as he looked at Yi Jai down below. "So, you are the one who played me. Who the heck is that monster?" Constellation, cleanser of altars, is incarnating into the scenario. The next one to appear was the owner of the nine-tooth spike rake. Zhu Beiji, kitted out in a piece of loincloth so flimsy and small that it might not as well be there flapping below his jiggling belly fat, shouted out loudly, "Where are you, the conquering King Pixie, Yu Yonghyuk? Ha ha ha! I was thoroughly impressed by you, the one who played me." It seemed that the cleanser of altars was fixated on Yu Yonghyuk at this point. The great sage looked at both Zhu Beiji and Sha Wujing and nodded his head. "You came, fellow disciples. A bit late, weren't you?" "I didn't really come to help you out, senior brother. No, I was just curious about the actor playing me, so don't be mistaken." Zhu Beiji muttered out some excuses that sounded oddly coy for some reason, and along with Sha Wujing, who looked somewhat shocked and hurt, stood next to Sun Wukong. When the demon-slaying staff and the nine-tooth spike rake unleashed their statuses right next to the Ruyi Bang, it finally dawned on me that all of the three musketeers from the Journey to the West had gathered in one place. Great fable, Journey to the West, is regaining its original status. Soon, the nervous constellations of Emperor loudly yelled out, "Judges, are you saying that you'll be siding with the great sage?" It's not just them. 6 more humanoids were standing tall behind the 3 Journey to the West's main characters. One of them resembled a monkey, while others resembled a shark, a lion, and even a rock. I immediately recognized who they were. The great sage who covers the seas, Saurian Demon King. The great sage who brings chaos to the heavens, Rock Demon King. The great sage who moves mountains, Lion Spirit King. The great sage who pierces through the winds, Macaque Spirit King. The great sage who chased away the immortals, Snub-Nosed Monkey Spirit King. The last person wasn't Iago, but Jiang Huiwan. This just got rather interesting. Thanks to the blessing from the great sage who pacifies heaven, Bull Demon King, the status of the actress playing that role, Jiang Huiwan, was rising up at a breakneck pace. "We will fight alongside you, great sage, heaven's equal." The 7 great sages that waged the great war against the heavenly worlds, alongside Sun Wukong, had finally gathered in one place once more. These Yogos didn't get much page time during the original Journey to the West, and as a result, their presence had always remained behind the veil of obscurity. They appeared today to undo the knot of resentment in their hearts. I always felt wrong because my nickname also happens to be Meihawang. Today, I shall resolve my deep-seated grudge. After the 7 great sages jumped into the fray, the flow of the battlefield changed greatly in an instant. Those outer gods hesitantly studying the plotters' moods, until then joined the battle as well. Meihawang, handsome Monkey King, watching the battle unfold, muttered to himself, "Where did that conquering King Pixie disappear to anyway? Now that I took a look, I couldn't see Yu Yonghyuk anywhere. He should have been battling the 28 mansions constellations just now, so." Suddenly, I had this ominous foreboding. I looked up at the Weni King and the great Dakibus, watching the climax of this scenario from high up in the sky. "Advance, do not retreat, and continue fighting. The victory shall be Emperor-S in the end." Emperor-S constellations roared out energetically and continued to push forward. The ones taking the lead up front were the heavenly palace's 4 heavenly kings. Dhritarashtra of the east, Viridhaka of the south, Virupaksa of the west, Vaishravana of the north. Not only that, there were the pagoda-bearing heavenly king Li Jiang as well as Prince Nezha. It seemed that they were getting desperate as well. And then even the Queen Mother of the West, and the owner of the Jingangzhuo, Dea Tianzun, too. Constellations that you might recognize by their names alone had descended to this place and unleashed their fables. There was little doubt that the Great War against the heavenly worlds was being recreated right now. Nebula Emperor is releasing its great fables. This was the might of a great nebula. Even then, the great sage didn't back off. Many in the audience can't close their slack jaws while watching this abrupt spectacle. Constellation, Abyssal Black Flame Dragon, declares that if the prisoner of the golden headband loses today, they will no longer be considered rivals. Constellation, Demon-like Judge of Fire, is cheering on the prisoner of the golden headband. Constellation, Goryeo's first sword, is expressing his respect towards the prisoner of the golden headband's martial prowess. The first one to kneel was Jutarestra, followed by Viridhaka. Everywhere the Rui Bang flew past, the heavenly world's army crumbled. The divine level of martial arts, the might of the greatest constellation, Sun Wukong, was in full display. But then, a Buddhist chant coming from somewhere caused the great sage to come to a stop for the first time. Su-cha-cha-cha-chu. Even I ended up gasping out in pain. It seemed that I wasn't the only one suffering here. Both Mei Hawang and Baimon spoke in annoyed voices. Godamit. It's that baldy monk. The constrictive headband was tightening around the great sage's head. He massaged his temples with one hand while issuing a warning. Guanyin, do not interfere. Those words prompted a Buddhist lotus pedestal to appear among the clouds. Guanyin was sitting in the middle of the pedestal in the lotus sitting position. Wukong, have you forgotten about what happened in the past? What are you talking about? Please stop this. This is not the righteous path. What if I don't want to? Have you not received my aid until this moment? Can you not concede in consideration of that at least? Your aid, the great sage's brows shot up higher. All thanks to your oh-so-wonderful aid, I got to enjoy untold hardship. As if he was venting out all of his built-up resentment, the great sage began shouting out loudly. All those trials and tribulations we had to go through came to be because of your voyeuristic tendencies. The great sage's memories related to Guanyin, the one who perceived the sounds of the world, began telling their tale. The law stipulates that one has to fulfill all 9 by 9, 81 tribulations in order to return to their self. However, they have only experienced the 80th calamity, and thus lacks one. 5 gates, I now task you to go after them and create the final calamity. The journey to the west final calamity, the one behind it was none other than Guanyin. The ones responsible for the world's calamity by raising up the army of demons and inciting the Yogos were you and Emperor. They were all necessary tribulations. You must cool your ire now. As the great sage grew even more agitated, Guanyin began reciting the constrictive sutra once more. You think you can stop me with such a pathetic sutra? Pa-cha-cha-chud. The status emitted by the great sage, heaven's equal, disrupted the constrictive sutra's effect. Guanyin was taken greatly aback by this development, and while retreating along with her lotus pedestal, she raised her voice. Your powers have grown too strong. I alone can't handle him. The pagoda-bearing heavenly king bit his lower lip. We'd be able to win if we drag out the fight, but less than 30 minutes remained until the conclusion of the scenario. They knew that, even if they emerged victorious through a protracted battle, there would be no meaning if they were defeated in the scenario. Sakyamuni, where is Sakyamuni? In the end, Emperor had to make the obvious choice as their final move. We only need the 5 pillars. As long as we have that fable, defeating that damn monkey bastard will not pose any problems. The 5 pillars referred to the Buddha's 5 fingers. Even if it was the heaven-defying Sun Wukong, as long as there existed the fable of him being subdued by the Buddha's palm, he'd not be able to escape from the stage transformation's influence. And one of the split bodies of the Buddha, Sakyamuni, existed in this world. Prince Neja whispered to the pagoda-bearing heavenly king next to him. Have you forgotten? Sakyamuni's whereabouts are unknown since the great war of saints and demons. Most likely, I fear that he had perished during the process of sealing away the Isle of Reincarnators. Sakyamuni has died. Doesn't that mean there is no method to suppress him? Please do not worry, we do have his successor with us. At the end of those words, the army of Emperor split open. Come, Sakyamuni's successor. The highest ranked constellations of Emperor were walking out from the space created by the army. Each and every one of them were powerful beings that rivaled the likes of Olympus' 12 gods. But when I saw the person wearing the airy Buddhist robe walking in the middle of them, I quietly grew agitated. Yu Sangha was there. Yu Sangha, reincarnating through the promise with Sakyamuni, and by the eternal chain of samsara, she was reborn as the Sakyamuni's successor. A great sage. The great sage's body had stiffened up immediately. I could sense a great deal of emotional turmoil within him. I also heard Meihawang's and Baimon's voices just then. So that was why, when he saw her for the first time, who'd have thunk that it was that incarnation body? At that moment, a certain part of the great sage's memories rushed in. That lengthy storyline of the journey to the west was abridged in an instant. And I realized it then. Yu Sangha hadn't simply reincarnated as the Sakyamuni's successor. No, her current incarnation body used to belong to someone very special. Oh dear Sanzeng. Tang Sanzeng, Chinese letter, Chinese letter, Chinese letter, Chinese letter. The one whose mastery of the Constrictive Sutra had surpassed everyone else's in the whole world, and also the only one capable of coercing Sun Wukong with just one sentence. Emperor's constellations loudly shouted out, "Hurry and suppress that bastard, O Sakyamuni's successor." Even as he saw Yu Sangha walk towards him, the great sage, heaven's equal, showed no sign of budging, as if he had fallen deeply into the reminiscence of the ancient past. "Great sage, get a move on, what are you doing? We're going to get done in at this rate." Hearing those words made me a bit anxious as well. Was the Yu Sangha before my eyes the Yu Sangha that I used to know? What if she lost her memories, like how the reincarnated Shin Yu-seung lost hers? What if she became a completely different person to whom I used to know? Yu Sangha's hand gently reached out and touched Sun Wukong's headband. "You seem to be in great pain. It must have been difficult for you." But the moment I heard her clear voice, I realized something. This person was definitely someone that I knew. She was neither Tang Sanzeng nor Sakyamuni's successor. No, she was the one comrade that I could trust the most, Yu Sangha. I believe that this item will look better on someone else now. Her hand slowly moved and took Sun Wukong's constrictive headband off. The headband that had been tightening around the great sage's head fell to the ground, with absolutely no resistance whatsoever. Meihawang, Baimon, and even the great sage, all of them stared at her in pure disbelief. Emperor's constellations freaked out grandly and tried to rush in, but by then, it was all too late. As the roars from the constellations rained down, the prisoner of the oldest prison was finally being freed. Awakening condition for the constellation, prisoner of the golden headband, has been satisfied. Duzhen Shengfo's fable is being unsealed. Modifier for the constellation, prisoner of the golden headband, is evolving. As the glorious rays of light exploded forth, the prisoner of the golden headband slowly opened his eyes. Constellation, the most ancient liberator, has been freed from his seal. Episode 83, Dakya's Incarnation 5 Fin. Chapter 444, Episode 83, Dakya's Incarnation 6. After he was freed from the seal, the great sage heaven's equal became more like a yaksha. Constellation, abyssal black flame dragon, is greatly astonished. Constellation, demon-like judge of fire, is dazedly watching the battlefield. Constellation, spear that draws the borders of the oceans, is opening his eyes wide. Constellation, great mother god who created man out of earth, can't tear her eyes away. This power that, never mind the highest-ranked fable-grade constellations, Even the myth-grade constellations had no choice but to pay attention to. Sun Wukong's clones multiplied through the body-outside-body spell to number in the hundreds, nay, into thousands, and began dealing with the nebula's great army. Thunderbolts shooting out from their fists obliterated a group of historical figure-grade constellations in one go, and a dozen or so fable-grade stars crashed to the ground below after getting struck by the Ruyi Bang. The entirety of the Tangshan River couldn't handle his power and began crying out. Qualia. This was the might of Sun Wukong, the one who had completed the conclusion of the grand epic, the journey to the west. Su-cha-cha-cha-cha. Sparks exploded non-stop on our body. We were inside the journey to the west, the location of his fable no less, yet the star stream was still suppressing his powers. The disjointed probability was returning in full to the Sun Wukongs as well as myself, and thanks to that, I thought I might lose my mind here. Excessive distortion in the probability is eroding your consciousness away. Looks like Makni is finding it hard to handle. Let him leave. 4 Sun Wukongs have agreed to separate the Demon King of Salvation. My body grew out of the main one like a sprout and began crashing down to the earth below. I retched uncontrollably, and by the time I regained my wits, I found myself sagging on top of a piece of floating debris on the Tangshan River. I could see Sun Wukong that I used to be a part of only a moment ago busy engaging the Emperor's constellations in a bitter warfare up in the sky. Ajasi. A voice came to me from somewhere, and soon enough 2 humanoids crashed into me, one fairly large and one fairly small. Balat Bayrat. I raised my upper body with great difficulty and saw Shin Yu-seung and Biyu clinging onto me. While crying her eyes out, the former was hugging my arm dirtied by the blood and flesh of various yogos. I wiped my hands caked in blood on my coat and carefully hugged her. Even though the fourth wall existed, the incoming rush of emotions couldn't be restrained. I was back. I had managed to come back again. Dakyo SSI. I raised my head to find Yu Sanga in her white robe standing nearby. She had reincarnated into the incarnation body of Tang Sanzang. Even though her body was now different, her appearance was the same Yu Sanga that I remembered. I smiled weakly at her. You came back. I've seen all the things you've done while I was away, Dakya SSI. My shoulders flinched just a bit before I knew it. I wondered if she'd scold me, but to my relief, she simply smiled benevolently. It must have been hard for you. Before I could say something in reply, though, she continued on. However, please stay that way for a little while longer. NG. Just as I was about to open my mouth, Yu Sanga gently reached out and placed something on my head. You have become the owner of the constrictive headband. Due to the effect of the constrictive headband, a new modifier has been generated. You have become the prisoner of the constrictive headband. My jaw went slack from this unbelievable event. So, what should I do with you now? Seeing Yu Sanga pressing her finger to my forehead and wagging it around a bit, I was overcome with this slight sense of terror. I was well acquainted with the pain from the headband already. I quickly opened my mouth. I know that I made a few mistakes, I do. However, can I tell you in detail about them a little later, right now? Right now, that side should take priority, I know. I nodded my head. We looked up at the sky where the great hole was still whirling around, and in the middle of the hole, at the 2 Yu Yonghyuks currently locked in a bitter battle. Yu Yonghyuk 999, wielding the dark heavenly demon sword, dashed into the air while scattering the status of a transcender. At the end of his travel, awaited the king of all Yu Yonghyuks. So this is what you chose in the end. The oldest Yu Yonghyuk in the universe. He was Yu Yonghyuk who broke past the 1863rd regression turn and witnessed his own conclusion. 999 stared at that secretive plotter and recalled his own ancient memories. The end that came around to all living creatures just once. 999 also experienced his own version of the end, Although what he saw was different from the plotter's conclusion, he at least glimpsed his end just a little. The 999th regression turn was quite different from the others. The majority of people would never understand what it meant for a single person to live 1,000 lives. However, 999 did just that, and he knew that he'd get to live just as many lives in the future. And that was why at least for this turn, I shall live for all of you. He sacrificed himself for his companions during the 999th turn. Captain, just forget about me. I'm telling you, leave me behind and go. During the 38th scenario, he lost his left arm trying to rescue Yijai. Yungyokesasai, no, Yungyokesasai. During the 55th scenario, he lost his right leg for Yihyeonseong's sake. But why did you, for someone like me? And during the 74th scenario, he sacrificed both of his eyes to awaken Shin Yu-seung. It because all of you also did that for me, that is all. Whether this was him trying to atone for his past lives, or an odd, unlikely whim resulting from the 1,000th stab at life, he couldn't tell. Except that, Yu Young-hyuk of the 999th regression turn earnestly lived his life like that. For the first time ever, he gave up on the idea of wanting to see the conclusion. What he wished for instead was, I wish for all of you to see the end of this world. Didn't matter even if he didn't make it. He just wanted one person at the very least to see the end of this star stream. Yu Young-hyuk of the 999th turn sacrificed his memories and soul for that purpose. He didn't hesitate to form the Otherworld Pledge, if that allowed his companions to grow stronger. And at the end of the road, where he sacrificed his everything. Captain, we're almost at the final scenario. A small miracle happened. Just a bit more, and we're there. Young-hyuk SSI. He couldn't even walk with his own power anymore. He no longer possessed hands to swing a sword, he didn't have eyes to look at the world anymore, and couldn't use any of his skills after his bloodstreams all went haywire. But as the reward for his sacrifice, his companions managed to get near the final scenario. Please wake up, please, please. In the end, though, he didn't get to see the conclusion to all the scenarios. The Otherworld Pledge had taken away his life on the verge of the final scenario, that was why. The secretive plotter stared at such 999 and spoke up. Yu Young-hyuk from the 999th regression turn. I respect the life you led. Excluding me, you were the only one who managed to get near the conclusion. 999, quietly pointed with the dark heavenly demon sword. From the body of the secretive plotter, shouts directed at 999, coming from other Yu Young-hyuks flooded out. Are you being serious? Do you really wish to fight the great plotter? You need to wake up, 999. However, you are a part of me. No matter how much history you drag out and use it against me, you'll still never defeat me. If you are really me, then you should know that you can't persuade me. The life you experienced only amounts to half of mine. Besides, your memories aren't even perfect. Yet, you wish to fight me regardless. 999 didn't reply and simply built up his momentum. Perhaps he read something from such a 999. The plotter's attitude suddenly changed. If this is what you truly want. Jet black smoke rose up and began creating the outer skin of the secretive plotter. A certain man's outer appearance slowly materialized within the smoke. The loneliest king in this universe, the white coat-wearing Yu Young-hyuk from the 1863rd turn now stood there. I, too, no longer have the need to carry on with this pointless charade. At the end of those words, the secretive plotter discarded the coat he was wearing. The white coat flew away with the wind and landed on the surface of Tangshan. Pitch-black darkness seemed to wrap around his shoulders, and before long, a black coat was now covering him. It was the same coat that stayed with him through to the 1863rd turn. The heaven-shaking sword in his hands began emitting ominous aura. And at the same time, the figures of two Yu Young-hyuks vanished in the air. Quack 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 quack. Countless friction noises arising from two swords clashing alerted others to the unfolding fierce battle. The vicious collision of two statuses caused sparks to explode endlessly and dyed the sky pure blue. This sudden eruption of the violent clash prompted the eyes of the audience, focused on the great sage's struggles until then, to shift away. That also included Yu Yonghyuk, standing on the surface of Tangshan and looking up at the ferocious battle between the 999th turn and the 1863rd turn. His clenched fists trembled as his muscles tightened. Both of them would prove to be a difficult opponent for the current him. If he continued to diligently acquire more lives, then he might have reached that lofty height. Yu Yonghyuk kept his eyes wide open and fixed his gaze, as if he wanted to absorb everything about 999 and the secretive plotter. He read their fables over and over again. Fable Hellscape of Eternity has begun its storytelling. The fable depicting the truly unfathomable hellish landscape. The Yu Yonghyuk who had walked half of that hellish nightmare, and another Yu Yonghyuk who had actually witnessed the end of that hell, were clashing against each other. Two breaking the sky swordsmanship drew long arcs in the air like shooting stars. One was from the heaven-shaking sword, while the other was the dark heavenly demon sword. Two swords burned brightly like a pair of supernovas. Now that I look back, you didn't use heaven-shaking sword as your main weapon, did you? During the 999th turn, Yijihai inherited his heaven-shaking sword. The secretive plotter used the breaking the sky meteor strike. Chinese letter, Chinese letter, Chinese letter, Chinese letter, Chinese letter, piercing through 999's entire body. You will never win against me with such poor sword technique. I'm sure that's the case, however. 999 became riddled with wounds in the blink of an eye, yet he didn't back off and held the sword even tighter. For a moment there, the plotter's eyes quaked. 999 had disappeared for a blink, but then he materialized right before the stunned outer god's eyes. This was not the breaking the sky swordsmanship. It was instant kill. At least, I can show you the history that I lived through. It was Yijihai's technique. Something like this. The dark heavenly demon sword was deflected away in the nick of time, but it now smoothly drew the arc belonging to Kendo next. Tsujujujut. The eyes of 999 now flickered with the lights of demon slaying. The life Yijihai lived during the 999th turn was now unfolding from 999's hands. The kick as sturdy as Yi Hyunseong's, the claw technique as ferocious as Yi Xiaoleichua's, Shin Yuseung's natural perceptiveness, and even Kim Namwon's excellent battle sense, too. Histories that 999 experienced through his body began telling their stories now. In this very moment, 999 wasn't alone. Techniques from the comrades he had saved were being recreated through his flesh. Kendo broke past the breaking the sky swordsmanship, and the combination of blackening and demon slaying dug into the open gaps of Red Phoenix Shunpo. And so, as Yi Xiaoleichua's thousand spirits poison took aim at the plotter's heart. With these measly trivial techniques, Great Fable, Pilgrim of the Lonely Apocalypse, has begun its storytelling. 999's fable began crumbling away. Yi Hyunseong's defenses crumbled and Yi Xiaoleichua's claws broke. Kim Namwon and Yijihai both fell, while Shin Yuseung went down on her knees. The dark heavenly demon sword flew out of his hands after he failed to withstand the impact, and the weapon fell to the surface of the Tangshan River. Just like always, 999 was left alone. 999, you have failed. Confronted by the unfathomable life lived by one individual, the lives of his comrades all crumbled away. 999 nodded his head, yet he did not despair. In another universe it might be different. 999's gaze was redirected to the Tangshan's battlefield, something that the great sage and Kim Dokya Company had created. Events of this universe that had never happened before. Even you have been fooled by the baseless hope in this place, it seems. You speak as if it's someone else's business, great plotter. 999 staggered unsteadily, yet he continued to speak. We have failed. We failed to save a single one of our companions and witness the end by ourselves. Was that really the end we wanted to see? That is futile sentimentality. This universe is different. No, this universe shouldn't even exist from the beginning. The secretive plotter spoke coldly as his figure moved. This universe was created by the end result interfering with the cause. This universe hastens the collapse of probability with its mere existence. Indeed, this place shouldn't even be allowed to exist, as it's simply a practical joke by the most ancient dream. Great plotter, you already understand this, don't you? Within that closed-off universe of the oh-so-great original storyline, it was impossible to see the story we wanted to. And that was why you. For the first time there, the secretive plotter faltered slightly, but that lasted only for a moment. He lightly wielded the heaven-shaking sword, which pierced into 999's body. Return to me, 999. I need you back. The stabbing heaven-shaking sword began sucking out 999's memories. Their ego that had been split apart was now being reclaimed. 999's blurring vision shifted down to the Tangshan surface below. The secretive plotter already knew who was down there and spoke in a mocking tone. He has already tasted defeat at my hands. Do you honestly believe that someone who can't even remember anything is capable of stopping me? Yu Younghyuk, take hold of the sword. A sorrowful voice reverberated throughout the Tangshan, and at the place where that voice reached stood Yu Younghyuk, who was neither 999 nor the secretive plotter. He was looking up with a confused expression, but then looked back down to the two items resting on top of the debris floating on the river. 999's dark heavenly demon sword, and then the white coat the secretive plotter had discarded. I wish to live. If I have a chance, just like the world that I saw. Pain assaulted him in his head. Unknown memories brushed past his mind. Your fables are getting agitated. You need to remember who you really are. As if he was under a spell, Yu Younghyuk grasped the dark heavenly demon sword. It felt so natural in his hand, as if it had been his since a long time ago. And he picked the coat up from the debris as well. It was white, the color he disliked. You are not the third turn, Yu Younghyuk. That day, 999 told him that. Haven't you ever wondered why something felt off? Even if Kim Dokya was here, does you of the mere third turn developing this fast make sense to you? As he fell deeper into this familiar sense of déjà vu, he slowly put the white coat on. It fit him like a glove, as if he had worn it before. Do not try to bullshit me. I'm third turn, It'd be a lie if he had never thought about it at least once before. Was he really the third turn, Yu Younghyuk? And even if I'm not the third turn, all I can remember are the memories of up to the third turn anyway. Yu Younghyuk slowly raised his head and looked up at the sky. The slowly vanishing 999 was looking back at him. Don't you have comrades now? The face that he had not seen once, even with a mirror. Comrades that remember your life far better than yourself. The plotter's heaven-shaking sword moved. The jet-black status capable of rending even the universe itself took aim at him, and in that moment, Yu Younghyuk recalled someone. And then, the Omniscient reader's viewpoint, third stage has activated. As if a sponsor had descended, the power of a familiar star incarnated into him. Let's go. And the story began. Episode 83, Dokya's Incarnation 6 Fin. Chapter 445, Episode 84, 1864 1. Dokya Ajasi. I hesitated while watching the distant battle between two Yu Younghyuks. Your incarnation body's condition is currently unstable. I'd not be any help whatsoever if I joined the fight in my current condition, and when I took a closer look, the ones fighting were 999 and the secretive plotter. I wasn't sure why, but 999 must have decided to side with us. I clenched my fists tightly. Kim Dakya made a decision. There was only one method remaining. The omniscient reader's viewpoint. Just like back then against Nirvana, or during the fight against Poseidon. Makniya, what are you hesitating for? The great sage Heaven's equal spoke to me. Even though he was in the middle of a huge battle in the sky, he still sensed my emotions. I muttered in a voice that could barely be heard. I've gotten a little afraid of reading them. It was probably after fighting against Yu Yunghyok back in the Isle of Reincarnators. And more recently, right after I heard what 999 had to say. Do you still believe that you can understand someone through just a few lines of text in a couple of chapters? Up until now, I had been a reader of the stories. However, for how long would it be okay for me to remain as one? Right, you possess the power to read another person. He had accurately guessed my ability. He stuck around my channel for a long time as the prisoner of the golden headband, so it wouldn't have been that difficult to figure that much out. There was a time when I, too, wanted to know more about someone. I sensed the great sage's gaze landing on Yu Sangha, or more correctly, not her exactly but her current incarnation body. He was staring at the body, former owner. I still haven't fully understood why Sanzang chased me out twice. During the original Journey to the West, Sun Wukong was expelled from the party twice. However, I never asked Sanzang about it properly. Maybe it was because of my worthless pride. I was stuck in a loop, thinking and wondering only to myself. Why did that idiot do that? What was the reason for those decisions? What was the point of such obstinacy? What did I do wrong, and where did a problem come from? Even after our journey was over, those questions kept bubbling inside my head. This would be my first time hearing such a story. Even to someone like the great sage, there were unresolved questions reserved only for him. And by the time I finally found the courage to ask, my opportunity had slipped away already. The faintest trace of dejection could be felt from his voice. Since I didn't know much about the story after the conclusion of the Journey to the West, I had no way of estimating the depths of his sadness. One thing that I could be sure of, though, was the fact that the real Sanzang was no longer with us in this world, as Yu Sangha had reincarnated into the incarnation body in question. And to find out the answers to those questions, we kept repeating this Journey to the West remake, hoping that maybe someone else would tell us the story that I didn't know before, something that I had not read before. Only then did I realize why the great sage participated in this scenario event. I felt curious just then. Did he finally find his answer? I couldn't find it, however. I did find a small solace. The great sage's gaze was now fixed on Shin Yuseung. As the Emperor's attacks rained down, he continued to speak. And about that solace, let me tell you all about it. Great Fable, Journey to the West, is continuing with its storytelling. I'd probably never get to understand certain things. I'd never even get close, and maybe everything I did might be in vain. However, even if we know it's impossible, we still have to read the fable. That is what it means to exist as constellations, as the stars of the heavens. The great sage failed to understand Sanzang, and quite likely he'd never get to understand even into the future. Even then, he didn't give up. That's why you should read it. However, I alone can't. Why do you think you're alone? I reflexively raised my head after hearing his words. Maybe not like you, but people always are reading each other, so you should not stop reading either. In a way, this advice wasn't really on point. However, I still ended up feeling a certain something. It was as if small feathers had piled up. I began thinking that maybe this was the solace the great sage felt while watching our story. You sang us SI. I called out to her, and she looked at me as if she was waiting. Will you be all right? Yes, by the way, if it's possible, be gentle. Yu Sangha nodded her head and chanted the constrictive sutra in my direction. My body slumped to the floor as if a fuse had gone out. My consciousness managed to slip out and quickly flew towards where I needed to go. Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint, third stage is activating. Your degree of understanding of the applicable individual is very high. The first-person protagonist's POV is activating. My vision slowly stabilized, and at the same time, powerful strength overflowed within my body. It was Yu Young-hyuk's strength. A short while later, the enemy's figure could be seen before us, an existence enveloped in the aura of immense status and arrogantly glancing at us. The secretive plotter. The great sage was right. That guy could never be defeated alone. Let's go. The transcender's status violently raged within my body. I added every ounce of my own status to Yu Young-hyuk. Transcender's status has encountered the Demon King's status. The powers that I earned so far interweaved with that of Yu Young-hyuk's and began boiling up. Vigorous energy circulated within the blood vessels as if they had a complete overhaul. Yu Young-hyuk slowly opened his eyes gleaming in golden light and spoke back to me. "You're late." He didn't get angry or reprimanded me, simply choosing to say that. He probably knew that I was playing the role of Sun Wukong, though. "I'm sorry. Talk about unimportant matters later. Defeating this bastard takes our utmost priority." Quiet. The plotter's heaven-shaking sword lightly danced, and the Tangshan River was split in half. With nary a hair's breadth, we managed to evade the attack. Constellations and incarnations coincidentally within the range were swept away and became nothing more than fatting screams. That was truly a nonsensical attack power. You're struggling in vain. Even if you manage to regain your memories, you still can't defeat me, because you too also began from me. What is he on about now? Yu Young-hyuk, running on the river's surface, replied in annoyance. According to him, I'm not Yu Young-hyuk from the third turn. Really, then what? I reflexively asked him, but to be honest, several dizzying theories were floating around in my brain already. Perhaps this was the question that had been building up from a long time ago. Third turn Yu Young-hyuk shouldn't have known about such information, though. Back during the green zone scenario. No matter what, his rate of growth is just too fast. And even back in the cinema dungeon, too. All the questions I secretly had every time I checked Yu Young-hyuk's character list began rising up one after the other. Even the conversation I had with 999 entered my head. Yu Young-hyuk in this world line said that he was the third turn. So this place is the third regression turn. Trusting such information at its face value, how naive. By the time I came around, I was already initiating the character list. Applicable individuals' information is far too numerous. Character list will change to summarized list. For the convenience of the user, only the selected items will be displayed. Character summarized list. Individual Yu Young-hyuk. Exclusive attribute regressor third turn, myth, ruler of amusement legendary. It said third turn. He was definitely from the third turn. In that case, just what on earth were those guys talking about? Kim Dokya Reali Current TL. Pages of my memories began flipping, memories that I tried so hard not to recall. That world you've shown me, does it really exist? The applicable individual is not a character. Wake up, Kim Dokya. I abruptly regained my wits after hearing Yu Young-hyuk's shout. Now wasn't the time to think about something else. The plotter's status as he floated up in the air was strengthening gradually. It seems that you still haven't really regained your memories. I won't lose so easily this time. As if to oppose that rising status, Yu Young-hyuk raised his own power level. The movement technique, Red Phoenix Shunpo, and the power of the Breaking the Sky swordsmanship were pushed to their absolute limits. The Breaking the Sky Thunder Sword completely covered the dark heavenly demon sword. He fought in the same manner the last time, and still lost. However, those weren't the only things accompanying him this time. Fifth bookmark has been initiated. Exclusive skill, Lightning Transformation LV 23+13, has been initiated. Exclusive skill, Way of the Wind LV 18+8, is activating. Demon King Transformation is activating. Effects of the Way of the Wind were added to Yu Young-hyuk's Red Phoenix Shunpo, while the electrical energy from the lightning transformation permeated into the breaking the sky thunder sword. And finally, the power of Demon King was added to the power of Transcender. Double the power, triple, quadruple. Yu Yonghyok's status multiplied in an instant and threateningly spread over the Tangshan's surface. Su-cha-cha-cha-cha. As the sparks danced in the air, we dashed towards the secretive plotter. The lightning transformation and the breaking the sky thunder sword permeated in the dark heavenly demon sword. The greatest technique belonging to both Kyojios and the breaking the sky sword saint emitted blinding light simultaneously, causing a truly incredible storm of sword aura to gush out. Qualia. This was the power capable of cleanly splitting mountains in half and vaporizing the ocean itself. Unfortunately, the secretive plotter remained unperturbed even when facing such power. Two swords then clashed, emitting screeching friction noise. As I was sharing the sensation with Yu Yonghyok, I felt the full brunt of the pain akin to my hands being torn to pieces. We were attacking with both hands, while he used only one, even then. How pitiful, Yu Yonghyok. We failed to cut the secretive plotter. Su-cha-cha-cha-cha. Sparks exploding around him indicated that he wasn't even going all out. How could there be such a large gap between our fighting power if that was the case? Fable, Hellscape of Eternity, is continuing on with its storytelling. The surroundings were morphing into his stage, the hell of regression that reached 1863 turns. Outer gods moaning in pain inside burning craters and countless corpses of the stars strewn about. The price for escaping the closed universe and dreaming of a new story is for you to not even remember who you are. Is that the world you've been truly wishing for? That evil demon-like voice came from beyond the hellish landscape. I was confused. It was as if I could almost get what he was saying, but at the same time, I couldn't readily accept it. Yu Yonghyok that escaped from a closed universe and dreamed of a new story. I knew of only one Yu Yonghyok that fit that criteria. And if that was true, then if the Yu Yonghyok I knew was that Yu Yonghyok. The fourth wall is getting even thicker. Kim Dakya, we won't win unless you use that powerful skill, Yu Yonghyok suddenly yelled out. Utilize the fable from the last time. I knew what he meant by last time. The hellscape of eternity, the fable that I used while fighting against Poseidon in the past. Back then, we killed Theseus by borrowing the memories of the 362nd turn Yu Yonghyok. I looked at the fable of darkness flowing around the secretive plotter and could only sigh in doubt. Honestly, I'm not sure whether we can win or not even after using that. The regression turn I used all my being to read back then was only 362nd. Things would have improved somewhat by now compared to then, but still, I couldn't even guess whether that'd be enough to defeat the guy before our eyes or not. And also, that wasn't the only thing making me hesitant here. If I succeeded in borrowing the strength of Yu Yonghyok from higher turn than 362nd, then this Yu Yonghyok would lose his memories alongside me. Just like how constellations and incarnations read fables, I too read Yu Yonghyok's ways of survival. If I used the hellscape of eternity here, then Yu Yonghyok would have to experience the reading, stained by my misunderstandings along with me. The ways of survival I read in order to survive, history that I remembered as I pleased. I had one-sidedly twisted or exaggerated the Yu Yonghyok in that history. My version was questionable at best, an idealistic depiction of the reality. Even then, I had no choice but to do this unfair thing. Fable, Hellscape of Eternity, has begun its storytelling. While stuck inside the feeling of powerlessness, I flipped the pages. Whether it was before or after the apocalypse, it was the same story. All I could do at any given moment was to flip through the pages of a book. Countless regression turns of Yu Yonghyok went past my eyes. Third turn, 4th, 5th, 41st, 182nd. Memories continued to flow by. Many Yu Yonghyoks were now staring back at us. 362nd turn, 598th, 724th. Your comprehension is advancing towards a new possibility. Pages you couldn't read before are now available. 862nd, 999th. Blood welled inside my throat. Pain pummeled my head as if to shatter it into pieces. 999. The regression turn that I really liked. Yu Yonghyuk's dialogues gradually decreased in the number. This was my limit. You have reached the highest turn you can read. The highest turn, Yu Yonghyuk, you can read is 999th. The message popped up like the final score tied to the book report, but I couldn't lift up my head. How could reading something be this shameful and feel so wrong? It was in exact moment that Yu Yonghyuk opened his mouth. Doesn't matter how you read it, the one to judge it will be me, so you simply concentrate on reading. He deflected yet another one of the secretive plotter's attacks even though his body was riddled with wounds. He spoke again. It's my freedom to decide what I hear and what I remember, and I shall decide who I am. With a voice I knew so well, he was talking about a story that I didn't know. You fool, you are not reading it alone. The moment I heard him, something woke up inside me. It wasn't the memories related to the ways of survival. No, it was of the conversation I had with my mother a long time ago. Why are we rereading the story we know already? There were stories that didn't change even if you read it again. It did not change because the one reading didn't change. My mother replied to that question in this manner. Shall we read it together then? Reading it together. Your comprehension is rapidly being enhanced. As my head became even more of a mess, the pages that I couldn't flip with my powers alone began flipping over. 1146th, 1398th, 1561st, 1733rd. The people I met in this world were flipping the pages together with me. I still failed to understand some things, but I got to figure out a few others just then. And there were some paragraphs that I'd seemingly never understand. I thought I heard the secretive plotter shout something. My consciousness continued to waver. Like a man fighting the drowsiness, I continued to flip the pages again and again, while vomiting blood, while enduring against the merciless barrage of sparks. I still didn't know much about Yu Yonghyuk. You can only return to that world after I die, correct? If you remain here, you won't be able to save that world. However, what if my misunderstanding built up over the period of 10+ years could help me reach just a tiny sliver of understanding like some kind of miracle? I've become curious about that world's black. Then I'd be able to read it again. The highest turn, Yu Yonghyuk, you can read is 1863rd. The plotter's status flying and touched the dark heavenly demon sword and scattered away. I dazedly blinked my eyes. As if the overwritten letters were being peeled off, the character list began changing. The number 3 was peeled off, and new numbers were being engraved there instead. And on top of this empty piece of blinding white paper, a page I had never read before began unfolding. Character summarized list. Individual, Yu Yonghyuk. Exclusive attribute, Regressor 1864th turn myth. It was a completely new story. Episode 84, 1864 1 Fin. Chapter 446, Episode 84, 1864 2. The 1864th turn. We were not in the third turn, but in the 1864th world line. The moment I saw that attribute window, waves of realizations that I could barely digest right now crashed into me. This Yu Yonghyuk is the one that disappeared during the 1863rd turn. How can that even be possible? But didn't that Yu Yonghyuk escape from being a character? Yu Yonghyuk from the 1863rd turn escaped from being a character because the third turn exists. But if that's true, then how could he be the third turn Yu Yonghyuk from the get-go? Numerous questions brushed past my head, and the last thing to pop up was the final conversation I had with TLS 123. I was thinking of sending you a special gift as a way to express my gratitude, Dakyanim. That gift the author was talking about, could it be? Quaquaquaqua. The fable's power overflowed. The surrounding view of the hellish landscape began changing. The world was wailing in sorrow, and outer gods fallen into lamentation cried on. And on that stage of despair, a thin and thread-like but clear ray of light existed. It was the sword light belonging to the dark heavenly demon sword. Have you regained your memories, then? The secretive plotter asked, but Yu Yonghyuk didn't reply. I knew why he didn't, of course. The explosive amount of memories were making an utter mess inside his head. That was why. My reading wasn't perfect. No matter how diligently I read it, and even though Yu Yonghyuk worked together with me, it was physically impossible to completely restore the 1863rd Yu Yonghyuk. As he staggered about, fragmented memories continued to enter his head. Eat dirt, Yu Yonghyuk. Happy memories, happy memories. Yu Yonghyuk said. You son of a... This isn't the time to think about that, you idiot. I hurriedly awakened Yu Yonghyuk, because the heaven-shaking sword, carrying the status of a hellscape, was slashing towards his nose right at that moment. Along with clang, two swords clashed loudly once more. The attack still felt considerably heavy. However, it wasn't as intolerable as before. I wanted to fight you. For the first time ever, the light of emotions began spreading within the plotter's eyes that used to remain calm no matter what happened. The Yu Yonghyuk, who survived the original story I read, and who saw its finale, the secretive plotter, was now talking to us. You bastard, you disappeared to the beyond without a word. I had no idea what he was talking about. It seemed that Yu Yonghyuk, too, had no idea. The stuff I read in great haste was imperfect, and because of that, there were lots of holes in Yu Yonghyuk's memories. He then angrily spat out. Looks like I'll have to teach you how not to speak in riddles. Great Fable, Demon World Spring, has begun its storytelling. Great Fable, Torch that Swallowed the Myth, has begun its storytelling. Fable, Hellscape of Eternity, is continuing on with its storytelling. The fables we shared were shoved into the dark heavenly demon sword simultaneously. The ensuing attack clashed against the heaven-shaking sword, and the moment two hellscapes collided, a whole universe opened up between the blades. It was basically a big bang of memories. Two remarkably similar beings are colliding. Disconnected film theory is activating. The moment I saw the view of the universe, I instantly realized which phenomenon was about to unfold here. It was none other than the disconnected film theory. A similar event also occurred back when the two Shin Yuseungs from the two different world lines met. This is a new world line. These memories were brought up to the surface after two definitely similar Yu Yonghyuks walking on completely opposing paths collided. It's not possible for this kind of a world line to exist. These were the plotter's memories, memories of the very day that he had discovered this particular third turn. Interesting, is this really the third turn? The secretive plotter couldn't tear his eyes away from the third turn story playing out before his eyes. Someone he didn't recognize was advancing the story along with himself from the third turn. He couldn't understand how such a thing could even be possible. However, you'll still fail. They used some methods he recognized, while he hadn't even thought of some others before. Sometimes they looked to be reckless, and in some other times they got real lucky. This was a fable he had never seen before. The secretive plotter watched the fable of this world line as if he was sucked right into it. And so, how long had he been watching this fable? He finally realized that he had become exactly the same as the constellations that he loathed so much. All the Yu Yonghyuks he had absorbed were talking to him. Have you forgotten the great plotter? We wish for death. That regression turn will not succeed anyway. Death, that was the ardent wish of all Yu Yonghyuks cursed with the fate of regression. The secretive plotter existed solely for the sake of fulfilling that mission. It's impossible to kill the most ancient dream. As long as we are alive, we must regress again. Even if dying is impossible, what would it be like to get infinitely close to it? The reason for sending Han Soo-young's avatar to the 1863rd turn was precisely because of that. By using the irregular discovered in this third turn, they'd complete their death. He was planning to seal away every Yu Young-hyuk via the disconnected film theory, to merge with the 1863rd Yu Young-hyuk and fall into an everlasting slumber. But on the verge of that plan's completion, he had a sudden change of heart. I'm simply heading towards the final chapter, Chinese letter, Chinese letter. It was because of one certain constellation that searched for his own black. The final chapter, the name of black square that he dearly wished for but never received. 41st turn, Yu Young-hyuk is shocked. 416th turn, Yu Young-hyuk is shocked. 967th turn, Yu Young-hyuk is shocked. 1472nd turn, Yu Young-hyuk is shocked. Yu Young-hyuk's from all the regression turns inside him also witnessed that spectacle. Some Yu Young-hyuk's marveled, some despaired, and some Yu Young-hyuk's grew furious. The secretive plotter belonged to the last category. It's not possible for another final chapter to exist. His world had already come to an end. He had reached his conclusion by going through trials and errors of the 1863rd regression turn. He had lost everything, and he witnessed the end of all scenarios, and he reached that wall. He hadn't been wrong, and he wanted validation for it. Let's say that you reach the end and save the world through your methods. If so, what are you going to do about the other worlds? What will happen to other worlds that you didn't save? And so, the secretive plotter sent Kim Dok-ya to the 1863rd turn. He made the fool witness the end of the story. To tell him, this is the true original story. To tell him, this is the end of the world I have decided on, and nothing can change that fact no matter what. I'll end your story for you. However, Kim Dok-ya, I won't be returning to the third turn. I'll remain here and witness the end with the people of this place. He changed that. Su-jut-jut-jut-jut. The Yu Young-hyuk sealing plan failed, and the direction of the story that should have been set in stone was diverted. 1863rd turn. Yu Young-hyuk is refusing to cooperate with you. I wish to live. Yu Young-hyuk, who should have been sealed away, chose regression instead and entered a brand new world. The secretive plotter hurriedly collected the memories of all the dead Yu Young-hyuks and chased after him. He chased after the Yu Young-hyuk wearing the white coat, crossing the blinding starlights of the world lines while his memories scattered away. This Yu Young-hyuk had cast off the mask of character and flew towards the brand new world. Stop, you cannot head to the next part. Only the secretive plotter knew of this world's conclusion. The 1863rd turn was the end of all stories, and after it was. I wish to witness that world. Return to me. The place you're supposed to be is here, you. The secretive plotter roared out. Even if the most ancient dream permitted this regression, in the end Yu Young-hyuk was bound to repeat the nightmare again. And not to forget, him starting the scenarios without his memories would mean. That fool definitely said it. He said that universe definitely exists. Most ancient dream is growing curious of that story. Yu Young-hyuk was reaching out. He was now picturing it, a world located so far away. A world that didn't exist within the universe of the ways of survival. The secretive plotter managed to catch up to Yu Young-hyuk's soul form in the nick of time, but what he grabbed onto was simply the white coat. Yu Young-hyuk's body had already disappeared by then. The secretive plotter muttered out hollowly, "You fool." The Yu Young-hyuk, who lost his memory, succeeded in regressing. This would be another futile story where the beginning and the end were already set in stone. The everlasting nightmare was about to repeat itself again in that place. The secretive plotter began searching for this world line. He wanted to learn more about the world line that the oh so amazing idiot disappeared into, even at the cost of his memories. The plotter thought that he'd feel better about himself after witnessing that fool living out the scenarios in wretched, broken misery and regret. Eventually, he discovered the world line in question. Shockingly enough, he knew about this world line already. This can't be possible. But only then, everything seemed to click into place. The reason why a world line he didn't recognize suddenly appeared. The reason why a completely different world line existed where the third turn should have been. Every regression he experienced was used as a sacrifice to create this world line above the wall. Most ancient dream is dreaming the final dream. This was the impossible world line created by the end result, interfering with the cause. His universe was shaking now. As the explosion resounded out, Yu Yonghyok's and the plotter's figures separated. We fixed our grip on the dark heavenly demon sword and glared at the enemy before us. The secretive plotter spoke. Now you know, this universe shouldn't even exist. Finally, I could understand what this guy was talking about. And also, I could understand just a little how this world line came to be and why these events had occurred. The beyond that Yu Yonghyok from 1863rd turn chose during his regression. That was the regression turn we were experiencing right now. What a cruel thing this is. You just about managed to escape from being the puppet of the nightmare, yet you became the puppet once more. His tone of voice was heavy with grief. I couldn't even fathom the depths of resentment contained within his words. If you read the same book hundreds of times, you might come up with a different interpretation. However, the texts will not change, because those are the events that had already ended and can't be turned back to the beginning. The plotter's heaven-shaking sword was drawing a long trajectory in the sky. It contained the weight of the 1863rd turn. The one who used to be Yu Yonghyok once upon a time, but now lived on as the secretive plotter. The one who dreamed of the death of all the Yu Yonghyoks in the world. He spoke up once more. The only reason why all of you managed to survive was because I exist. And that existence was wielding his history like a weapon. All of you, you should have died in that subway, or back in that cinema dungeon. You should have died at Nirvana's hands and should have perished in the dark castle. He was right. You should have died in the demon world. You should have died during the Gigantomachia, and you should have all died tens, no, hundreds of times already during the great war of saints and demons, and during the journey to the West. If his life didn't exist, if his failures didn't exist, then none of us would have survived until now. So how did you all manage to survive? And now he was asking us, why is it not me but you? Episode 84, 1864 to Finn. Chapter 447, Episode 84, 1864-3. I recalled that time when I visited the 1863rd turn. When I first saw the 1863rd turn Yu Yonghyok, I thought that he was the Yu Yonghyok from the original. The main character that I spent my childhood years with, the very one that propped up my life. But then he was not him. The Yu Yonghyok who helped me endure had finished his tale a long time ago. He had reached the conclusion of the 1863rd turn and witnessed the end of the world and then roamed the horrifying abyss of the world lines. For thousands of years, maybe even for tens of thousands. I didn't know just how long he lived on like that. But what I knew for sure was that he had survived until now too. He remembered all of those times and he was being hostile towards me. You all do not possess the right to witness the black. He was right. The only reason why I managed to wade past the scenarios was due to the plotter's life preceding mine. His status was growing even stronger. The outer gods, observing the situation in the vicinity, all knelt down simultaneously. Oh. His aura mushrooming up like clouds wrapped around the heaven-shaking sword. That was the power he gained after living through 1863 lives, and also while roaming the world lines afterwards. Great fable, Pilgrim of the Lonely Apocalypse, has begun its storytelling. Countless Yu Yonghyoks were looking straight at me from inside him. Yu Young-hyuk from 41st turn is looking at you. Yu Young-hyuk from 362nd turn is looking at you. Yu Young-hyuk from 666th turn is looking at you. Yu Young-hyuk from 999th turn is looking at you. The histories they had compiled together, all their sins, they were right there. Sins so numerous that not even Jopil, eye of sin, could see the end of. He was an existence deemed to be terror by this star stream, a being that went beyond the boundaries of evil and had been declared as incomprehensible by the world. He was the king of the outer gods. However, his true nature was neither evil nor was it terror. No, the reason why he had to be ostracized by the star stream was because his character proved to be simply too uncompromising. I shall destroy the star stream. And the thing was, the star stream didn't like such characters that lacked any flexibility whatsoever. One's character had to bend sometimes, had to know when to yield, and also had to know when to crumble away. However, the secretive plotter wasn't a character like that. That's why he was able to get this far, and was able to become the secretive plotter. I shall definitely kill the one that started this story with these hands. That was the apocalypse of this world, the one he wished for, and also the end of regression that all you Young-hyuks wished for as well. Constellation, secretive plotter is looking at you. He was definitely in the right. He definitely was far more qualified than anyone to witness the conclusion of all the stories, especially so when compared to someone like me, whose only achievement was reading the ways of survival. Stop with your unnecessary thoughts, and don't stupidly sympathize with him either, said Yu Young-hyuk. Are you planning to yield to some random bastard after you came this far? Was the fable you managed to compile so far created solely by copying that bastard's life? I couldn't reply. If you sympathize with what he says, then it's the same thing as denying the lives of your comrades who fought alongside you. For sure, I did rely on the ways of survival in the beginning to skirt past the dangers, but things were different after that. Events that didn't happen during the original novel occurred, and dangers not found within it also came to visit us, and I managed to overcome those dangers with my comrades. As our fable continued to grow, so did my distance from the ways of survival, and from a certain moment on, I stopped consulting the original. That was also the reason why I hadn't read the final revised version yet. This world was not the same one from the ways of survival that the secretive plotter lived through. Yu Young-hyuk continued to speak. He could be right. His decisions might have been right too. However, it's still not a good enough reason for you to yield to him. Fable, comrade of life and death, has begun its storytelling. Because we are also right, said Yu Young-hyuk, the one who also endured the tragedies of the 1863 regression turns. Without a doubt, he too was also Yu Young-hyuk. It still doesn't really feel real to me, but if I have been truly experiencing the 1864th turn then. Yu Young-hyuk, gripping the dark heavenly demon sword, shifted his gaze for a brief moment towards our companions on the Tangshan River. Yijai-Hai's fleet was continuing their barrage, and Shin Yuseung's chimera dragon was spewing out its breath attack. Yeonseong, gripped tightly by Jiang Huiwon, was also fighting hard as well. Meanwhile, Jang Hayoung was running hard with Yi Gil-yong on her back. None had died, and they were trying their best, so that they could see the end of this stinking world. Most likely, I came here to witness this sight. The dark heavenly demon sword and the heaven-shaking sword clashed once more. Two swords that didn't want to back down continued to roar on, their blades filled with the self-belief of their wielders. The secretive plotter shouted out, "Do you still not understand, even if you have regained your memories? How persistent! Just what do you expect to hear from me then? What? Do you want us to admit our loss? If not, do you want us to understand your life? Understand, you can keep your. Indeed, you probably don't need it." Yu Young-hyuk replied disinterestedly, and because he was also Yu Young-hyuk, he could say these following words. I too don't need you to understand me. He said that because they understood each other already. Loud metallic clangs resounded out every time two swords collided. One status violently clashed against another status. Fable hellscape of eternity is roaring out. Two hellish landscape intertwined to create this battlefield. Frustratingly, all I could do was to watch these two Yu Younghyuks and do whatever it took to flip these damn pages. Great Fable, Season of Light and Darkness, is thrashing violently. The winner couldn't easily be decided. Even then, the secretive plotter remained utterly relaxed. Perhaps that was obvious. Our side only just got to use the power of the 1863rd turn after all. In terms of proficiency and familiarity, we were in an overwhelmingly disadvantageous position. Maybe thinking that victory was in the bag now, the secretive plotter leisurely asked a question. I'm curious. The puppet of the most ancient dream, what is the conclusion you wish to see? And why should I answer you? Could it be that it's the same thing as that demon king of salvation? Do you honestly believe that, man? Two blades clashed in midair and huge shockwaves spread out. Yu Younghyuk took a step back while wiping the blood off his lips. You have no idea how pathetic that comrade you trust so much actually is. You don't know what the conclusion of the world he wishes for is. The secretive plotter faintly grinned as he rained down his breaking the sky swordsmanship. When this world line opened for the first time, Kim Dakya's goal was to merely survive. I dazedly raised my head and looked at Yu Sangha. Quite likely this woman will die, and so will I. In the gap between the two blades, the fables I lived through were breathing with life. His next goal was to become stronger by using you. Make me your comrade, I can fill in the part you lack. Yu Younghyuk is definitely necessary in order to clear the numerous scenarios still remaining in the future. As if pages were flipping over, fables I lived through were being projected right before our eyes. As if to stop that story, Yu Younghyuk viciously swung his sword, but all of his attempts were denied by the plotter's heaven-shaking sword. Meanwhile, the plotter continued on. After that, after he found himself with a little bit of leeway, he even dared to dream of this world's conclusion. Hyung, aren't you going to make a wish for something? I quietly stared at Yi Gilyong for a little while before making my reply. I made a wish to see the epilogue of a certain novel. The great sage Heaven's Equal said this before, that it wasn't only me who read other people. Just as I've read them, they were also reading me at the same time, he said. He was right. While I was busy reading The Ways of Survival, the secretive plotter was also reading my story. He had been observing the entirety of the life I experienced. Kim Dakya began dreaming the same thing that I used to dream about once upon a time. He wanted to destroy the heaven star stream and destroy the world beyond the wall that I couldn't overcome. He wanted to save every one of his comrades, and even I saw the group of nebulas floating in the middle of the darkened sky. Vedas, Olympus, Papyrus, I shall never forget everything you have done. I will create a fable that hasn't existed before. Memories continued to stream by before our eyes. Some were as exactly as I remembered, while some were distorted or twisted around. Because it wasn't an intact fable, that's why. This was the plotter's interpretation of Kim Dakya's story. This is what the secretive plotter feels. He continued to speak. Kim Dakya will not achieve that goal now. Specifically, he won't be able to. I wanted to ask why he thought that. The fourth wall is faintly shaking. A fable could be made up, but it'll never tell a lie. The plotter's left hand touched Yu Younghyuk's hair. The dark heavenly demon sword reflexively slapped that hand away, but by then it was too late. Fable, one who is loved by an archangel, has begun its storytelling. As if they were newborn bobbies, the fables I possessed began crying out one by one. Some of them were fables I was familiar with. On the other hand, Fable, the fifth son Wukong, has begun its storytelling. Some were fables I had earned not too long ago, and Fable, rival acknowledged by the dragon, has begun its storytelling. Fable, the sea god's comrade in arms, has begun its storytelling. Fable, Goryeo's #2 sword, has begun its storytelling. And there were some fables that I didn't even know I had them. All of my fables were speaking up at the same time. Oh, demon king of salvation, you can't destroy the star stream. Stars in the sky were flickering brightly. They were the same stars that I used to hate. Constellation, god of wine and ecstasy, is watching you. Constellation, father of the rich knight, is watching you. Those who had been watching me, allowing me to get this far. Constellation, queen of the darkest spring, is watching you. My supposedly oldest enemies. Because you do not hate the constellations. Even as I listened to the secretive plotter, I couldn't say anything. I wanted to say that it wasn't true. I wanted to say that I hated constellations. I wanted to say that bringing them down was still one of my goals. However, I couldn't, because God amid I. Constellation, maritime war god, is watching you. I knew now that not every star in the sky emitted the same sort of light as the others. Constellation, bald general of justice, is watching you. Constellation, Goryeo's first sword, is watching you. From the absolute throne scenario to the demon world. Without the probability they had gathered for us, I'd not be able to get this far. Constellation, demon-like judge of fire, is watching you. Constellation, abyssal black flame dragon, is watching you. Constellation, most ancient liberator, is watching you. I had no choice but to acknowledge it. All of my fables were created together with them. You do not wish for any loss to occur to this world line, because you grew to love this story, and that is why. As if he was putting a full stop on the story, the secretive plotter declared loudly, "You shall never witness this world's black. Thunders roared in the heavens. The battle between the great sage and emperor was intensifying. Many audience members are watching your battlefield. Constellations were looking down at us from above. Some pitied me, while some got angry in my stead. Countless indirect messages flooded in endlessly. Yu Younghyuk remained wordless. The raindrops falling on the Tangshan River substituted for any spoken words. I wanted to say something, anything. But before I could open my mouth, though, someone else stole the opportunity away. "So, what is it that you're trying to say here?" It was Yu Younghyuk. "Since Kim Dokya doesn't have the qualification, you will see this world's black square in his stead, is that it?" A faint crease formed on the forehead of the secretive plotter. "It seems that you can't think straight anymore. That man whom you thought of as your comrade is no different to the constellations that you hate. That bastard is." He, a pathetic fool indeed. Yu Younghyuk cut him off in the middle. He was just some contracted worker for a no-name game developer, and his hobby was reading novels. His shabby, self-introduction-like words reverberated around the sky. "Those were the things I told you, Younghyuk, some time ago. His specialty is to run his cocky mouth off, and he has this habit of throwing his life away so that we can overcome any and all impossible situations hindering us. Yu Younghyuk was talking about me that even I didn't know about. Someone like that managed to lead his companions this far. The dark heavenly demon sword shoved the heaven-shaking sword along with a loud kriak. For the first time ever since the battle commenced, Yu Younghyuk was going on a concentrated offensive. The plotter's expression shook. Yu Younghyuk's sword strikes were now digging into the outer god's defenses for the first time. Regardless of what the incoming conclusion is, this world wouldn't have come this far without him around. You don't know, Ennet. It seems to me that you're the one who can't think straight here. Why are you interfering with this world line then?" The wrathful breaking the sky swordsmanship mowed the darkness down. The plotter's figure wavered around greatly as he was pushed back. Not missing that small opening, Yu Younghyuk's sword rained down like a raging storm. "What is your goal anyway? If you found Kim Dokya an eyesore, why didn't you kill him earlier? If you found him using your life to survive that disgusting then?" The dark heavenly demon sword was now aiming at the neck of the secretive plotter. Constellation, secretive plotter, is glaring at the incarnation, Yu Yonghyuk. The moment when the two gazes collided, Yu Yonghyuk asked again, "Why are you still watching this story?" Chapter 448, Episode 84, 1864-4. Why did the secretive plotter watch our fable until now? Answer me. He was the king of outer gods, and he had seen his conclusion. Meaning, if he wanted to eliminate me, he'd have done so even if it cost a huge amount of probability. However, he didn't do that. The secretive plotter was now looking at Yu Yonghyuk and me. His consciousness was far too deep and extensive that I'd not be able to understand even if I used the omniscient reader's viewpoint on him. That might have been the case, but at least in this moment, I thought that I could understand him. If I plagiarized the ways of survival for my novel, then what were you plagiarized from? Han Soo-young of the 1863rd turn asked me that question. Even though I knew the answer, I didn't give her one, because I didn't want to admit it. The world created by her during the 1863rd turn was, in a way, far more complete than the life I had led. Everyone from the original novel was alive, and Seoul possessed the necessary infrastructure to deal with the final scenario, too. The only thing missing in that picture was Yu Yonghyuk. I thought that was unfair. I thought that the world copied from the original with its main character excluded was wrong. Certain copies can surpass the original. Despite that, I couldn't take my eyes off the world that Han Soo-young had created, even when I thought it was wrong, because her story contained the elements that I was also aiming for. Constellation, secretive plotter, is looking at you. Did copyright exist for one's life too? But was it okay to describe one's life as a work of an author? Demon King of Salvation. The one who offered up his life for the sake of another world-line success was now looking straight at me, the only man in this world who possessed the right to witness the conclusion. Even then, he couldn't see the end he wanted to see. Such a man grabbed Yu Yonghyuk's dark heavenly demon sword with his bare hand and spoke up. Is a story with no proper ending, a failed story. Fables flowed out from the fingers cut by the blade, fables that I was intimately familiar with. The story that I read for over 10 years. Do you truly, honestly believe that a proper conclusion exists in this world? Yu Yonghyuk hurriedly swung the dark heavenly demon sword, causing the plotter's figure to distance himself. Stay sharp, Kim Dokya. He's going to come at us seriously now. Attribute Demon King Slayer is activating. Attribute Terror of Stars is activating. The sword made to cut down demon kings, and Constellation began crying out. Fable Hellscape of Eternity is howling out. Great Fable, Pilgrim of the Lonely Apocalypse, is continuing with its storytelling. A person who completed a great fable through nothing but his own life was right before us. KKA Gagagagak. We couldn't handle the approaching fable and were forced back. Like soaked cotton, the whole body felt heavy. The Tangshan's waters overturned and the bottom of the river got exposed. We used the exposed bottom as our support and swung the sword towards the sky. Breaking the sky swordsmanship. Destruction technique. Breaking the sky meteor strike. The thunderbolt stabbing into the sky shot out from the tip of the dark heavenly demon sword. The statuses of a demon king and a constellation, as well as a transcender, were added on top of the multiple sword lights that hacked the sky like a falling meteor shower. And the other side shifted his heaven-shaking sword as well. Quack-quack-quack-quack. He also possessed the same techniques we possessed. Two identical meteor showers collided in the air, and a massive explosion rang out. When the technique was the same, what decided the outcome was the proficiency as well as the status of the fable. Great Fable, Pilgrim of the Lonely Apocalypse, is remembering the story. Unfortunately, we couldn't claim an advantage in either of those aspects. Kim Dokya. That didn't mean we'd back off here, though. I desperately unleashed other fables while still operating the hellscape of eternity. Fable, One Who Murdered the Outer God, has begun its storytelling. The reason why our opponent held the upper hand was due to the two attributes, Demon King Slayer and Terror of Stars. In that case, we needed to unshackle the fable that allowed us to fight against the outer god. Kugagagugu. One status collided with another. Blood trickled down Yu Yonghyok's nose. However, he didn't back away. Not just him, but even the fables seemed to understand it. They perhaps knew that, if they stopped telling their stories now, then all stories would stop right here. It's useless. The plotter's status moved. The great fable's aura that previously existed in vague ripples was rapidly changing. The pilgrim of the lonely apocalypse morphed into a giant, and its huge palm began crushing down on us. Yu Yonghyok roared out in opposition. We too have great fables. Great fable, Demon World Spring, is continuing with its storytelling. Great fable, Torch that swallowed the myth, is continuing with its storytelling. The world of the great fables streamed past before our eyes. The Demon World Spring that battled against Surya during the Demon King selection. The torch that swallowed the myth we earned while experiencing the Gigantomachia. Two great fables, one taking on the figure of a lion while the other, a dragon, began biting and tearing into the giant's palm and resisted it. 41st turn, Yu Yonghyok is watching you. 666th turn, Yu Yonghyok is watching you. 999th turn, Yu Yonghyok is watching you. Countless Yu Yonghyoks within the secretive plotter were observing this battle. I recalled the 666 and 999 in my mind. They should be in there somewhere. Along with the plotter himself, they had been watching me from the beginning of this world line. They were watching the heated battle between two Yu Yonghyoks and were growing agitated. The stage transformation is activating. The sky split open, then light and darkness began creating a new world. Great Fable, Season of Light and Darkness, has begun its storytelling. The season of light and darkness was our great fable, but at the same time, it was the plotter's fable as well. And even in this great fable, Yu Yonghyok still lost to the plotter. You cannot win. The effects of the stage transformation were absolute. The history of defeat would only go on to create yet another history of defeat. A man wearing a white coat was looking up at the sky, and the man wearing the black coat met that gaze. The plotter's eyes trembled. Without a doubt, this was the exact same battle against the same Yu Yonghyok as before, yet something was different. The plotter looked down at his own coat. It was black. The color of his coat was the opposite. Light and darkness were colliding, and one single watcher was observing the whole story. Incredible status gathered on Yu Yonghyok's right arm. It was clear which technique he was planning to use. The greatest technique the current him could call upon, the shooting star slash. Back during the Apocalypse Dragon battle, Yu Yonghyok failed to defeat the secretive plotter with this technique. Incarnation, Jiang Hui-1, has temporarily transferred her share of the great fable. Everyone from Kim Dokya Company, in the not-too-distant battlefield, was adding their strength to us. Everyone who held shares in the great fable was now participating in this battle. Incarnation, Han Soo-young, has temporarily transferred her share of the great fable. Incarnation, Shin Yu-seung, has temporarily transferred her share of the great fable. Incarnation, Yi Gil-young, has temporarily transferred his share of the great fable. Every fable of Kim Dokya Company gathered on Yu Yonghyok's dark heavenly demon sword. After seeing his fable balloon up like that, the secretive plotter began pouring out his own status as well. They might be two identical Yu Yonghyoks, but the fables they created were completely different. Who is Yu Yonghyok? The fables they possessed acted like that question's answer. Great Fable, Pilgrim of the Lonely Apocalypse, is continuing with its storytelling. The fable of the secretive plotter was Yu Yonghyok from the first regression turn, second, then 100th, and even the 1000th. A fable built up solely by one person's existence piling up on top of one another. All tragedies had become dull, and only one being's existence grew bloated. The sword light from the swung dark heavenly demon sword opposed that very fable. Fable, comrade of life and death, is continuing with its storytelling. That was Yu Yonghyok's reply. Fable, child of the past and future, has begun its storytelling. Yu Yonghyok was Shin Yuseong. Fable, judge of apocalypse, has begun its storytelling. He was Jiang Hui-1, and Fable, false savior, is continuing with its storytelling. He was also Han Suyong, and then Fable, demon king of salvation, is continuing with its storytelling. And he was me. Quaeyas. The shooting star slash collided with the plotter's great fable. This fight was quite literally at a deadlock, and a moment's carelessness could very well decide the victor. Every fable we possessed powerfully slammed forward. And then 666th turn, Yu Yonghyok is. A very small change occurred in the midst of this battle. 362nd turn, Yu Yonghyok is. A deafening boom went off, and the exploding spray of the river water formed a curtain of gray fog. The river water then rushed down on us and swept Yu Yonghyok's body away. His consciousness was fading. I subbed for him and dragged the incarnation body towards some nearby floating debris to climb on top of it. When I took a closer look, though, it wasn't some normal piece of debris, but a small island created out of the corpses of the outer gods instead. It was then that I heard a voice. There is only one difference between you and I. As the gray fog of river water rescinded, the figure of the secretive plotter flopped down on the corpse island revealed itself. You simply got lucky, and I didn't. Sujut judjajut. His black coat was in a tattered mess. Sparks were dancing all over his body. 1562nd turn, Yu Yonghyok is. 1321st turn, Yu Yonghyok is. Yu Yonghyok's inside him were now rebelling against him. They were refusing to heed the plotter's will. 999th turn, Yu Yonghyok wishes to see the end of the 1864th turn. His status was decreasing little by little, and his body was also gradually shrinking as well. His bulging muscles were getting smaller, and his height decreased too. Soon, the secretive plotter that lost his status had morphed into the figure of a boy. I staggered back to my Yu Yonghyok's feet. You. I wanted to say something, but no voice wanted to come out. The absolute majority of the audience are shivering at your battle. A portion of the audience is. We won. Countless indirect messages flooded in, but not one of them entered my head. The secretive plotter was sitting on his butt all alone on top of this island. The heaven-shaking sword, stabbed into the floor, was the only thing supporting him. While gripping the dark heavenly demon sword tightly, I cautiously approached him. Even though he was the same Yu Yonghyok, why did he have to live such a different life? Why did this guy have to overcome all these tragedies by himself? Great fable, pilgrim of the lonely apocalypse, is faltering in its storytelling. Was it because he didn't have any comrades? Comrades. 41st turn, Yu Yonghyok is staying vigilant of you. No, he had. He definitely had comrades. K-coma Yu Yonghyok's, emerging out of his body, were standing right there. Yaukant, 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 yaukant. K-coma Yu Yonghyok's were now surrounding him protectively. And then, the outer gods were surrounding those K-coma Yu Yonghyok's. Their Sanleon, their Sanleon, their Sanleon. The history that the secretive plotter had lived through, every part of the ways of survival he lived through, was now protecting him. Don't kill him, don't kill him, don't kill him, don't kill him. They were stories that got discarded because they failed to reach the conclusion. I moved Yu Yonghyok's body again and lowered my posture towards them. When I reached out, one of the small outer gods bit the extended finger. Crimson blood formed on the tip of the bitten finger. It was a lie that this world line was a brand new story. Even now, Yu Yonghyok's story, the ways of survival, hadn't ended yet. Kim Dakya. He must have regained his consciousness, because Yu Yonghyok began talking to me. I didn't reply immediately, and made my way past the outer gods to approach the secretive plotter. Now in the form of a boy, he was looking up at me while being surrounded by the outer gods. Yu Yonghyuk saw me holding the dark heavenly demon sword tightly and spoke, "You'll regret this." "No, I won't." I raised the sword only to slowly sheath it back in its scabbard. "Besides, you weren't going to kill him anyway." Yu Yonghyuk's retort came back a little later than usual. "Even if we kill him, he'll simply regress again anyway." Even if he was saying that, it was pretty clear what he was thinking of right now. We had enough of this tragedy already. Many constellations are watching you. Many constellations can't understand your decision. I didn't make this decision for the sake of earning a fable, and I knew that this wouldn't even offer a tiny speck of solace to a life that lasted for 1864 lives. But even then, secretive plotter, I called out and he looked up at me. Even if this world had changed from the original story, even if this world was no longer a simple novel, if it wasn't for this guy's story, this world wouldn't have existed. Without him, the current Kim Dokya wouldn't be here. I definitely owed him a debt that nothing could possibly repay. You said that a sentence once written can never be changed, right? I disagree with that. Indeed, sentences could be changed, just like how the revised versions of the ways of survival existed. My fable has already come to an end. And then? There is no then. That is what it means to end. Some stories can only begin anew after coming to its end. Back in the world I lived in, there was this guy who repeatedly said that his story would end that year, but he kept it going for over 10 years. And that very story was what helped me to survive. I think I heard that the story was supposed to end at around the 500th chapter, but before I knew it, it went past 1,000th, and then it shot past 2,000 chapters. What is it that you want to say? That story was written up to the 3,149th chapter, but the 3,150th hasn't been written. Even if a full stop had been laid down, as long as the next sentence was written, then the story would continue on. The secretive plotter should be well aware of this too, because he was a guy who had been telling his story far longer than anyone else out there. I spoke with a grin on my face. It feels like that story is still continuing on even right now, and maybe it is really continuing on. I feel relieved, actually. Because I'm a constellation, you see. As the plotter's expression hardened, I added something else with a cold voice. Constellations are creatures like that. This was the answer I had chosen. This was the only way to not belittle him, even if it ends up hurting him. The secretive plotter's eyes were glaring straight at me. That story you bastard have seen. His seething voice was directed at me. Will result in your death. It will show you the worst end result imaginable. And as for your nebula, doesn't matter. I knew that what I was saying here could be seen as irresponsible. My petty attempt at atonement could bring upon untold misery and misfortune for everyone else. I knew that. Even then, this was the best I could do right now. Every time that happens, I'll do my best to fight back. The plotter's expression was changing to one that I couldn't make, an expression seemingly reserved for when analyzing the ends of the distant universe. With that sort of expression, he scanned the battlefield. The rain falling on the battlefield had stopped, and the storm clouds that the great sage Heaven's equal had summoned were receding away. The great war against the heavenly worlds was drawing to a close. Emperor's fallen constellations were looking up at the great sage and the Yogos. The sense of defeat thickly drawn on their faces told me who today's winner was. Currently, the fabled chamber I've become the retired SSSS grade Sun Wukong is in possession of the sacred texts. Scenario will automatically conclude if the sacred texts are guarded for 1 hour. 10 seconds currently remaining until the conclusion of the scenario. Finally, the lengthy scenario was coming to a close. I looked up at the blindingly bright skis of the star stream. The great Docubus who'd control the final scenario were there, glaring at me. Scenario has concluded. Fable Chamber, I've become the retired SSSS grade son. Wukong has won the scenario. Bright messages announcing an incredible amount of reward payout and words of congratulations sent by the constellations rained down and blanketed the sky above. I spotted Shin Yuseung, with Bu riding on top of her head, hurriedly running towards me while waving around the sacred texts. The title of the texts was the following: I've become the retired SSSS grade son Wukong. Ajasi. Shares for Outer God in the applicable scenario is enormous. Starstream is acknowledging the existence of Outer God. Outer Gods can now officially participate in the scenarios. As the blinding rays of light accompanied them, the Yogos all rose up to the air. Yogos gathering around Sun Wukong as their center all howled towards the heavens like a single colony. I heard their cries. It sounded like a song from an unfamiliar foreign country. Next up, I spotted Jiang Huiyuan carrying my incarnation body while waving her hand. I might have heard it wrong, but I thought I heard her say, "I finally got you," or something like that. Next up, I saw Yu Sangha, now the Sakyamuni's successor, and Zhang Haiyong carrying the enervated Yi Gilyong. I looked to my side to discover the secretive plotter, witnessing the same spectacle as me. The journey to the west will end here. One scenario came to an end, yet the story continued on. However, even that story would have an end. You have acquired a new great fable. You have partially completed the fourth condition of the hidden scenario, a single fable. And so, ever so quietly, your great fable has completed the first half of the conclusion. The message foretelling the end of this world could be heard. Your nebula has acquired the qualification to enter the final scenario. Episode 84, 1864-4 Fin. Chapter 449, The Final Wall 1. 95th main scenario has concluded. After the scenario ended, the great sage and the outer gods gathered in the center of the Tangshan River to celebrate. Those with the identity of extras in the great fable journey to the west has now been freed. Outer gods that became the scenario's slaves under the Bureau S and Emperor S combined suppression were now being freed. Oh. Monkaking. Some of them even happened to be the ones that followed the secretive plotter and joined the scenario belatedly. And as his status grew weaker, they naturally began gravitating towards the great sage heaven's equal after he emerged as a new outer god. Reward distribution will now commence. Incarnations saw the 95th scenario's reward items descending from the sky, and their lips stretched wide in huge grins. Unfortunately for them, though, their joy was short-lived. Their gazes soon drifted over to a certain group of incarnations receiving that huge cache of rewards over yonder. Wow, that! I should have joined that fable chamber. It was Kim Dakya Company's group. Each one of them received 1 million coins as individual rewards, while some of them even acquired Emperor S-Star relics as well. Since the rewards were being distributed according to the rules, none here could complain about this procedure either. Nebula Emperor is protesting the scenario's fairness to the Bureau. No, there was someone who could. It was none other than the host themselves, Emperor. Of course, they would feel wronged by the fact that the rewards of the large-scale scenario they organized for themselves had ended up in the hands of a small nebula. Starstream is ignoring the Emperor S complaint. A portion of Emperor S constellations couldn't hold back their rage and were about to unleash their statuses, but then someone unexpected stopped them. Please, that's enough, everyone. We have lost. It was the greatest incarnation of Emperor, Fei Hu. What would our myth-grade constellations think if they witnessed our current actions? Emperor S myth-grade constellations didn't participate in this journey to the west scenario. They were simply watching the proceedings from the final scenario. Behave yourselves in a way that won't bring shame to our honor. Emperor S constellations heard the resolute voice of their incarnation and lowered their heads belatedly, their cheeks flushing. A bit further away, Jiang Huiwan and Yi Jiahai were observing that spectacle. That's a surprise. You can say that again. All the influential individuals from the large nebulas they had run into so far didn't want to acknowledge their victory, but it was a different story this time. Maybe he sensed their gazes, Fei who formed a sheepish grin and approached the two. Incarnation Jiang Huiwan. Jiang Huiwan got tense and held the steel sword tightly. He was easily one of the strongest enemies she had ever faced so far. But he began speaking in a warm voice. Incarnation Jiang Huiwan, our battle this time left a deep impression on me. Oh, okay. If an opportunity arises in the future, I'd love to invite you over to China and treat you to a hearty meal. One could spot slightly flushed cheeks in between Fei Hu's sideboards. Yi Jiahai definitely caught that, and through voice projection, spoke up in pure admiration. Wow, even though the world went down the crapper, a guy like him still managed to survive. Jiang Huiwan dazedly stared back at him. Meanwhile, he couldn't dare to meet her gaze and began fidgeting slightly. Yi Jiahai lightly elbowed Jiang Huiwan in the side. Iani, what are you doing? He's probably the best out of all the men we've seen so far, you know. Sure, he's far below my master in the looks department, but still. I'm sorry, but Jiang Huiwan replied in a polite voice as if she was an expert from Murim. I've decided to dedicate my life to the sword, so. It's the same story for me. Pardon. I'd like to invite you to China and share our views on the ways of the sword for the whole night. Fei Hu's eyes burned passionately as he began his long-winded speech, prompting Jiang Huiwan to feel a bit repulsed for a moment there. She glanced to her side and discovered Yi Jiahai, who used to be cheering on with her sparkling eyes, now shaking her head in helplessness. If this whole thing was nothing more than their misunderstanding, fine, but if not, then something rather bothersome might happen in the future. Su Chujajun. Her sponsor was unable to watch this anymore, and the sounds of her making a move could be heard next. Constellation, demon-like judge of fire, is. It's fine, Uriel, please be still. If Uriel unnecessarily stepped up here, then the dying embers of the war might light up again. If it was left up to her, though, she might just fight him one-on-one now and nip the bud right away, but the gazes of the constellations nearby were fixed on them, so. I'm sorry, I'm all ready. Just as she got that far, the steel sword she held suddenly began vibrating. Yi Hyunseong had transformed into this sword. For some reason, though, she felt just a little resentful. Why couldn't this sword be a talking sword? What the heck is this? Get out of the way. The one to help her out was, surprisingly enough, Han Soo-young. It was unknown when she entered the scenario, but regardless, she shoved Fei Hu away and made her entrance before throwing out a question, her eyes scanning the surroundings. Where is Kim Dak-ya? Kim Dak-ya? Jiang Huiwan shifted her gaze to a certain incarnation body slumped on her back. Fei Hu glared at the uninvited guest Han Soo-young with unhappy eyes. Jiang Huiwan alternated her gaze between him and Kim Dak-ya on her back, and a nice idea suddenly popped up in her head. My liege. As if she was reenacting the flag contest, she quickly embraced Kim Dak-ya and shouted out in an impassioned voice. My liege, are you all right? His pale incarnation body sagged limply in her arms and shook around a little. Oh, my king! Everyone was now looking at her. Yi Jiahai's jaw dropped slightly, while Han Soo-young looked dumbfounded. As for Fei Hu, he looked as if he understood everything now. I see, Incarnation Jiang Huiwan, so that's how it was. His gaze shifted from Jiang Huiwan, Han Soo-young, and to Yi Jiahai, before eventually landing on Kim Dak-ya's face next. He sneakily bit his lip. Like a tragic extra feeling envious of the chosen protagonist, he slowly lowered his head and turned around to leave. Yi Jiahai, watching that, sent a voice projection to Jiang Huiwan again. It's all right now, Iani. He's gone. Looks like he's fallen into some kind of a weird misunderstanding, though. However, Jiang Huiwan didn't stop. My liege, wake up, my liege. If you don't wake up, I'll kill you. Slap, 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 slap. Kim Dakya's left cheek began swelling up after her palm kept hitting him there. Han Soo-young stared at her with a less than impressed expression and asked, "What are you doing?" "Revenge." She nodded her head in acceptance and took over from Jiang Hui-won to grab hold of Kim Dakya's neck and shook him around hard. "Hey you. I told you that I'd create your new modifier, did I? But then, you couldn't wait and got yourself a new one anyway. Were you listening to my narration? Did you hear that last part? How was it? It's fine to come out clean, you idiot. I know you were moved to tears, weren't you?" Kim Dakya still didn't reply. Han Soo-young frowned deeply and began slapping the other cheek that wasn't swollen yet. Shin Yuseung couldn't watch this sight any longer and hurriedly ran over. "What are you all doing?" "Don't worry, he's still breathing. He's not dead yet." Despite all this ruckus, he showed no signs of waking up. That caused opinions to split up among the group. Most likely, he's deliberately not waking up here. He knows he's in the wrong. Makes sense. In that case, how about we let him taste pain so unbearable that he... Aren't you all being a bit too much right now? Such a situation carried on for another 5 minutes, but even after another 10 minutes, he still showed no signs of regaining consciousness. That's when the expressions of the group grew serious as well. What's going on here? Eventually, the group had to search for one person capable of explaining this situation for them. It was Yu Young-hyuk lying unconscious next to Kim Dakya. "Hey Yu Young-hyuk, open your eyes. Why isn't this idiot Kim Dakya waking up?" Slap, 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 slap. His firmer cheek didn't swell up as easily as Kim Dakya's. How long went by like this? Yu Young-hyuk's eyes cracked open just a little. "I am Yu Young-hyuk. Damn it, what's wrong with this guy now?" Like a mental patient, he kept repeating the same thing over and over again. Yu Sang-ah belatedly made her entrance and stopped Han Soo-young. "Please stop grilling Young-hyuk SSI like that. His memories got jumbled by the fable, so he's most likely not himself right now." Sang-ah honey. The group belatedly came back to life with the joy of reunion and gathered around Yu Sang-ah. A different type of vibe was now coming off from her newly reincarnated body. Han Soo-young observed the change and asked a question with a smirk. "I heard that you're now the Sakyamuni successor, but you haven't shaved your head. Religions nowadays have gotten rather trendy, you know." "Welcome back. You were a bit late, but still. It was difficult to return just in time before you caused us trouble, but I made it." "I'm not the one causing trouble, it's this guy." Yu Sang-ah shrugged her shoulders and extended her hand towards the unconscious Kim Dakya. The constrictive headband on his head began emitting a bright glow just then. Jiang Hui-won nodded her head in satisfaction. "That's a good idea. I guess he won't be able to run away now." "It's unfortunate, but he seems to have run away already." His soul hasn't returned to his body." A very thin thread was extending from the headband on Kim Dakya's head to the sky above. It seemed to be connected somewhere. Yu Sang-ah observed the end of this thread and spoke up. "But don't worry, he didn't go far, and it doesn't seem that he left on his own volition either." Didn't leave on his own volition. The meaning behind those words was clear. Han Soo-young hurriedly looked around the vicinity and asked, "Where did the secretive plotter disappear to?" The view of the dimensional portal was moving past me at a rapid pace. Everything happened in the blink. The moment I deactivated Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint, something grabbed my soul, and by the time I regained my wits, I was already jumping through this portal alongside the secretive plotter. Now normally, something like this would have been impossible, but it was a special case this time. You failed to uphold the existence pledge. Your soul will be temporarily tied to the existence pledge's contract. Your contractor will possess the rights to your soul for the next 24 hours. I looked at the messages rising up in the air and chuckled hollowly. I had no idea the existence pledge could be used this way. The existence pledge. Do not contact Kim Dakya Company during the scenario's duration or reveal my identity. That was the only thing I failed to uphold during the scenario. Since the scenario's contents changed midway, I figured there was some room for differences in opinions, but it seemed the star stream had judged that I went against the pledge in the end. "Are you going to kill me?" The secretive plotter, now in the form of a boy, was enveloped from head to toe in bursts of powerful sparks. I sensed countless Yu Young-hyuks looking at me from inside his fable, but I didn't sense any hostility from it. He clearly wasn't planning to kill me. Just like what Yu Young-hyuk opined earlier, if this guy wanted me dead, there were several opportunities to do so already. Not too long afterwards, the portal closed. Our destination was a familiar one. It was a forest covered in the overgrown darkness. It was the Engai's forest, the home of the secretive plotter. "Go inside." Along with those words, my soul got sucked into something. I blinked and my eyes moved. However, I had neither arms nor legs. I wondered what on earth was going on here and looked around, only to discover my reflection in the mirror on a nearby wall. I was now a small Murim dumpling. Somehow, I got the feeling that it was the same figure that 999 was using before. How does it feel like to end up as a dumpling? Not sure when they popped out, but well, a lynch mob of the K-coma Yu Young-hyuks rushed at me and began kicking me around. Thankfully, it didn't hurt all that much due to them being all K-comas. I hunkered down to stop the dumpling's skin from tearing and shouted out, "Not sure what you're trying to do here, but you can't stop me. In 24 hours, I'll return to my incarnation body, you know. If you want to kill me, you better do so now." Of course, I didn't really mean that he should kill me. I asked the secretive plotter, perched up on the throne. "Secretive plotter, what's your real goal? Why are you keeping me alive?" My question caused the K-coma Yu Young-hyuks to stop hitting me. The secretive plotter looked down at me. There he was, the strongest outer god as well as the constellation that I knew of. Also, the strongest Yu Young-hyuk out of all Yu Young-hyuks. I know that we'd have never won if you really went all out. Even if Yu Young-hyuk regained the memories of 1864 regression turns and combined his powers with mine, it was still impossible to surpass the plotter through purely the status of our fable. Not only was he the total sum of the histories spanning from 0th turn all the way up to 1863, but he also endured an uncountable period of time afterwards, on top of that. Even then, the secretive plotter chose to lose rather than to kill us. "Because you are a necessity, you fool," 41, listening to me yap on, replied. "You possess the last fragment of the final wall, that's why." Episode 85, Final Wall 1 Fin. Chapter 450, The Final Wall 2. Bihyung was in a very good mood. It couldn't be helped, since the Dakibai had witnessed the scenario playing out in the panel right before his eyes. "Every time that happens, I'll do my best to fight back." Accompanying Kim Dakya's voice was the scenario conclusion notice. Indirect messages from innumerable constellations flooded in, and the whole of Starstream was trembling grandly. A new owner of the great fabled journey to the west had been decided. He did it, that Kim Dakya, he really pulled it off. A storyteller was supposed to remain neutral. The thing was, though, all judges secretly rooted for a team they liked. This was true for Bihyung as well. Like a parent looking at his wonderfully matured children, Bihyung stroked the faces appearing on the screen with a deeply moved expression. "Congratulations, Bihyung Directornim." The subordinate Dakibis around him offered their congratulations. They all knew that Bihyung had been watching Kim Dakya Company for a long time. I just knew they would pull through. And me too, me too. Not only that, some of them had been cheering on the Kim Dakya Company, alongside him, too. Several carried expressions just as excited as Bihyung. For these Dakibis that only sought out new, potential stimulations in order to find the next story's objective, being this earnest about something was indeed an exceedingly rare thing. "These kids are mine, stop drooling over them." "Haha, of course we would." It was then an urgent piece of news arrived for him. Director, the great Dakibai Baram is. You've been promoted. A promotion. Behyung Director Nim, truly, honestly, congratulations. Looks like the Bureau is doing its job properly for once. Behyung couldn't make heads nor tails while subjected to the outpouring of messages. He was an upper-rank Dakibai, not to mention the director of the Seoul branch. He had already climbed to the highest possible position through one's hard work alone. However, getting a promotion here could only mean Director Nim. Without a doubt, this should be a good thing. But why was he overcome with this ominous foreboding? Great Dakibai is waiting for you. Behyung was guided by lower-ranked Dakibis to a portal and entered it. Soon, the thick fog receded away to reveal the figure of a great Dakibai waiting for him at the end of a gray-colored passage. You've come, Behyung. Baram Nim. As if to imply that Behyung had worked hard, Baram patted him on the shoulder and spoke up. Congratulations, your promotion has been decided. Pardon me. We need to do something about your dazed expression. Don't you understand? It's been decided that you'll be chosen as the last one to become the Great Dakibai. The Great Dakibai, the highest honor that all storytellers dreamed of reaching. Something that he only daydreamed about had now become a reality, leaving Behyung utterly bewildered and lost. Great Dakibai, you mean I am? That's right. This promotion is unprecedented in the history of Starstream. Baron chuckled contently and took the lead. Behyung didn't even know where they were going and simply chased after him. He had so many things he wanted to ask. Just where was this place, and also? You'll soon become a great Dakibai, so it's about time that you meet that person, no? Baram smiled as if he could see through Behyung's thoughts. When you say that person, could you be? Even though he did ask, Behyung could already guess the answer. The surrounding air seemed to distort and faint traces of sparks bounced around in the atmosphere. When he took a closer look, those sparks were taking on the shapes of letters. Something was before him, a being that he had never seen before. We've arrived. They circled around the gallery and went past the fog-covered passageway to reach a massive hall. No, could this place even be called a hall? It was so humongous that its dimensions couldn't even be estimated. And inside this place, there was a wide wall spanning across it. The length of this mysterious wall could also not be measured due to its sheer, immense size. Letters engraved on the surface of the wall seemed to be burning. Many cracks and various damages, both large and small, could be seen on its surface. In that moment, Behyung got the feeling that he had seen that wall from somewhere. The Plate of Revelation. It was undoubtedly the Plate of Revelation. Although its shape was different, that wall the constellations received their revelations from possessed the similar overall vibe. However, why was another Plate of Revelation here? And also, what was up with its humongous size? Everyone has gathered, I see. The moment he heard that voice, Behyung prostrated on the floor even before he realized it. He might have dealt with countless constellations until now, but at least this time, he couldn't control his nervousness. He couldn't even guess the vastness of the status felt from that voice. He glanced to his side and saw that all the great Dakibis, including Baram, were prostrating towards the front as well. Someone was standing in front of the Plate of Revelation. Behyung hid his shivering and slowly raised his head, and that's when he realized it. So that was it then, now he understood it. That creature was the absolute being that ruled the Bureau and controlled the Starstream. The King of Stories. The king extended his lengthy and pale hand to stroke the wall while slowly opening its mouth. The one fable that decides the next world will now be chosen. You saying that I have the last fragment of the final wall? That's right. 41's words made me frown deeply. I could guess more or less on what they were talking about. The final wall. I tried to gather information on that thing during this regression turn, too. It was one of the things that never got fully explained in the original Ways of Survival. I was pretty sure of this wall being the clue that would determine the end of this regression turn. And as for this last fragment thing they were talking about, Exclusive skill, the fourth wall, is powerfully activating. Kim Dak-ya. Don't worry, I'll never hand you over to them. I slowly blinked my eyes and focused. The secretive plotter was staring at me. He might have lost a lot of his status, but he was still the strongest constellation I knew, and he was an outer god to boot. I recalled the first day I arrived at the Engai's forest and opened my mouth. We talked about this before, didn't we? You said that I need to figure out why I had to be brought here before the 3 divine questions and answer came to an end. I did. You actually want to see the end of this world, don't you? You might be saying this and that, but you too have placed your hope on this world line. The plotter's brows quivered ever so slightly. No matter how hard he denied being Yu Young-hyuk, he still failed to get rid of his old habits. And for that purpose, you need the fourth wall that I possess. That's why you're keeping me alive. Am I right? He didn't answer me. If he was planning to behave like that, I could think of a way to get him to talk. Sujajajut. I didn't get to hear that final answer to the 3 divine questions. 3 divine questions and answers has resumed. You have one more right to ask a question. Back then I asked the secretive plotter this. The 3 ways to survive a ruined world. Secretive plotter, are you someone who knows the epilogue of that novel? Secretive plotter, just what did you see at the conclusion? The Ways of Survival I read ended with the 3149th chapter. However, the plotter lived on past that, even though I didn't get to see it. He survived that unrecorded history and reached the conclusion reserved only for him. Just what did he see in that place? What was there that it prompted him to become an outer god and appear in this world line? 41 stepped forward first to answer my question. He shouted at me with a slightly angry face. That question is 41st. Keikoma Yu Young-hyuks all shut their mouths up after the plotter stopped them. The Yu Young-hyuk, currently in the shape of a boy, the secretive plotter, was looking straight at me. For a moment there, I felt a bit weirded out. Yu Young-hyuk's childhood years had never been fully explained in the Ways of Survival. No, it just got a few brief passing mentions in the form of reminiscence. Of course, not getting a proper explanation didn't mean he had no childhood to begin with. It was kind of similar to the 3150th chapter of the Ways of Survival. Yu Young-hyuk was born in a place I didn't know of, and managed to survive until he became the story's protagonist. Just how much of my journey was described in that novel you read? The protagonist with a face I didn't know was asking me. I hesitated slightly before replying, up until when you were about to reach the Dakibai King. I recalled the final moments of the Ways of Survival. He journeyed to kill the Dakibai King. Wadding past the final fog, Yu Young-hyuk rushed into the final phase of the story. There was no further explanation on what happened afterwards or what he saw there. That was also the reason why I got flustered back then while reading the last released chapter. I grew scared, wondering if it really was the end. What was I like during those last moments? Now that unexpected question got me truly flustered. I didn't think he'd ask me about something like that. Why would you? Did it look like I succeeded? Did it look like I'd get to achieve my goal at the end of it all? The moment I heard his question, I was overcome with this unexplainable stifling feeling. I couldn't understand why the secretive plotter asked me that. My thoughts regarding that were not important at all, not even by a small speck. Wait, was it really not as important? You. My lips barely managed to bob up and down. I wasn't prepared for that question. However, I still needed to answer it regardless of whether I was ready or not. In that very moment, she realized that this world had completely left her hands. Memories from Peaceland came bubbling up, the mangaka Asuka Ren's expression as she let go of the world she had created, the duty of the person who had created a new world. I wasn't like her. I didn't write the Ways of Survival, but I was. This story was able to see the light of the world all thanks to you, Dakyanim. I was someone who had witnessed the story's end. You did succeed, Because you gave it your all. Answering him was the duty of the one who had seen the story until its conclusion. I carefully and slowly recalled all the sentences I still remembered. Didn't matter which regression it was, you always made the best choice you could have made. I don't know what kind of a conclusion you reached, but you were not wrong. All of Yu Jung-hyuk's regression turns brushed past my mind. Everything he earned and then all the things he had lost during them. I'm sure that your comrades thought the same too. And also, his lonely back as he reached the final page by himself. However, did I possess the qualification to say this, though? I couldn't tell. You didn't look all that happy for some reason during your final moments. Even now, the scenes I read didn't want to leave my mind. Finally, Yu Jung-hyuk, who had lost everything, was looking at the fog. The hollow answer he'd been searching for was just beyond that fog. The face of the secretive plotter that exactly matched the description from that scene was now looking at me. I see. Why did you suddenly ask me that? I was merely curious. You're the only one who had seen that from the beginning until the end, after all. I couldn't say anything back to him. I was curious about what my life meant through the eyes of someone other than mine. That's all. Episode 85, The Final Wall 2, Finn.